me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yesterday's conspiracy theories, tomorrow's headlines. Most are still asleep, and I ain't talking about no bedtime. The truth is not a Google search, you need to get your head right. The Greek goddess of illusion was called Media, and I'm not a coincidence theorist, I look for thread lines. Smashing every deadline, no longer smashing red wine. Though I can hear the bells chime, it feels like the end times. That probably should have been smashed on red wine, but the carnal mind is foolish. Obey and end up ghoulish. Don't get used by instinct, take control and learn to use it. Make a load of earnest music, earn a few quid, learn a few tricks. Sure, the truth is persecuted, this whole world is pure abusive. Know a bit about everything and everything about nothing. Figured out my noggin while you picture out shopping. You sit about watching while I dish it out. Stop it, I don't mean to sound cocky, I'm not even proud of it. It's a second nature to me, just for me to sound honest. I don't even need to sound honest, never been about profit. Everything but out on it, you can bet your house on it. Doubt I'll be out for the count when the sounds, and I'm down for the beat, no beat down. I mean, how long's it been? Help me out. I've been the only one who's held me down. All in the mind, hell freeze now. Still sick with it, healthy how? Few bars down and the world freaked out. I don't reach out, I seek out to speak out. I'ma recount the reasons they beat out.
Hello. Welcome, everybody, to the 509 Divine Pods podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Daniel Pena. It is May 25th, 2026, and today we have Adam Stokes in the building. This conversation is going to be gigantic. But first, I want you to click that not so gigantic like button, like, subscribe, and share. Go ahead and tell everybody around that this is going down. So let's spread this good word out. And, well, first and foremost, before we get this started, I want to go ahead and say thank you to Boomer Boost Forever Young for providing all the good stuff. Myrotrol, we have their patented Boomer Boost line with Gladiator Barley, Heirloom Barley, Lignans, Probiotics, Good Night Formulas, Resveratrol, Olive Leaf, Vitamin D3, all sorts of good stuff, man. Use coupon code Joe30 for 30% off your order, because we know that inflation sucks. Hey, but enough of that. You know what doesn't suck? This conversation right here, man. Adam, thank you for being here. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
If you could, just give everybody a brief background about yourself, or, rundown, whatever you want to say, in an introduction, what you're working on, just,
Sure, I'm kind of all over the place, have many different loves into theology, religion, ancient civilizations, especially looking at ancient civilizations from a much different perspective than what you get in the mainstream, looking at things that mainstream usually tries to avoid. So like the history of giants and cryptids and lost civilizations. So all that is my purview. That's my love. Written books about all those things. Currently have a book out right now called The Biblical Bigfoot, looking at kind of the origins of Bigfoot in the living in the U.S., but that he really comes from, well, he lives currently in what's now the U.S., but he literally comes from the ancient Near East. So yeah, I'm all over the place. I teach ancient languages. I'm a librarian. But what I love to do in my spare time, my own research, is look at, the ancient origins of the ancient world and how things came to be, and address those questions and those things that people try to shy away from. And I don't shy away from them.
It's like these days, when we're really figuring this out, we have a key to not just the ancient past, but we have the key to the future. Because if we don't know our past, we're doomed to repeat it. And right now, I think there's a big push towards getting this ancient concept of spirituality and physicality and inverting it the way that's what the mainstream wants to do. But here, I research it. you research it, and I could tell that everybody around in our fields of like ancient history and archaeology, we're opening those doors to be able to actually connect our mind, body, and soul. Recently, there's been just so many discoveries from Bigfoot, our ancient past with archaeology and seemingly the remnants of giants.
Yep. Yep.
It's all connected when we read the ancient texts too. Our ancient history, our ancient societies were very theocratic. They understood that our way of living had to be in align with a higher sense of spirituality, in alignment with the stars and
Yeah.
who we truly were born from. The giant
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
angels.
I mean, you see that in South America, with the Mayans and the Aztecs. You see that in North America with the Native American mounds. For me, like you said, looking back at the past, you can tell where your future is going. For me, you see this. I think the best example of this is, the lost civilization of Atlantis, and how they were really spiritually in tuned, and they kind of effed that up. They kind of screwed that up and destroyed themselves. And I think we're on that same kind of path if we don't watch out what we're doing.
Yeah, from what I hear, the destruction of Atlantis and Lemuria were because of their own geniusness, in a lack of better words. They
Yeah.
blew themselves up.
Yeah.
They had too much energy in a reactor of some sort. I don't know
Yeah,
what.
they had atomic power and blew themselves the hell up. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, today we're gonna talk about Bigfoot, giants, and all this. And for everybody out there, I just want to preface. I'm gonna give a quick rundown of my notes of the giants in ancient history, starting from the biblical perspective. We have the Nephilim,
Yep.
the most infamous primordial giants, the mighty men of old. We have the Anakim, known as the long-necked ones, or descendants of Arba. These giants terrified the Israelite spies. We have the Rephaim, often translated as the dead ones. This tribe was associated with giants in the land of Bashan, including King Og.
Yep.
Emim, described as the fearful ones. They lived in Ar and were eventually eradicated by the Moabites. We have the Zamzumin, referred to as the fortress ones. They inhabited Ammon and were defeated by the Ammonites. We have the Horims, a tribe driven out of Mount Seir by Esau, who I think might be Bigfoot's long ancestor. Well, we have the Avims, a tribe finished off by the Caphorites. Now, in the American folklores, I'm not going to get real descriptive too much, but we have so much. We have Quina Metzin in Aztec and Nuala mythology. We have Sikteca, a legendary tribe of red-haired giants, cannibals. The Muyasaka giants, or Lachis giants, indigenous legends of Colombia. Patagonian giants, reported by Ferdinand Magellan. We have the Chapachoya, known as the warriors of the cloud in Peru. In Europe, we have the Jotnor in Norse mythology. There's the Fomorians in Irish mythology. We have the Saori, a race of giants from Welsh. The Albion giants, a race from the British myths. The Miris, legendary giants from the Cornish folklore. We have the Huna Shamayid in Germanic folklore. These were Hun, or giant blacksmiths. The Aegean folklore, the Gigantes in Greek mythology, were a race of great strength. The Titans, a generation of fierce deities in Greek mythology. The Cyclops, a race of one-eyed giants in Greek mythology. The Hyperboreans, described as some classical writers of a race of giants living in the utopian land. Lashanu, a tribe of man-eating giants and accounted by Odysseus. We have in Asia the Ayad, an ancient Arabian tribe mentioned in the Quran. We have the Thamud, another ancient Arabian tribe. We have the Diadara Bochi, a race of cosmic giants in Japanese folklore. The Diataya and the Danava in Hindu mythology. The Asura, a class of giants in India. In Africa, we have a Abba Jui, a mythical race of giants in the San. The Hehe giants, a regional Tanzanian race of giants, a Levantine Shashu. These were Egyptian giants. We have the Shoti, also a race of giants from Egypt. Now, from your perspective, go on, man. This is all real to me. Like I take a look at this mythology as not myth, but real history.
I have never subscribed, Joe, to the view that this is all legend, all myth. That seems very problematic to me. When you go to universities and colleges, they say, "Oh, this is all myth. This is all folklore." I think there's too many damn stories. There's so much out there. You just with all that, you just touch kind of the surface. There's too much out there to suggest that this is just stuff that people invented in their heads. These were actual beings that existed. They existed all over the world. They have similar personalities. Most of these guys are a-holes, like you mentioned, the CK giants and stuff. Then you mentioned the other human-eating giants. These guys kind of were bullies. Not all of them, but a lot of them were bullies. A lot of them were punks. A lot of them like oppressed people. They had the same personality, and they're seen, like you said, all over the world.
In your perspective, I think our true origins, we were born from these giants. These giants came before us.
Yeah.
Do you kind of think that they were like here for millions of years?
Yeah, I think they go back to primordial civilization. I think various types of human beings have existed way longer than what modern evolutionary biology would tell us. I think we're looking, one of the things I say all the time is, we think we're the pinnacle of civilization, with streaming and cell phones and all that crap. I think they had this technology, millions of years ago. And, going back to Atlantis, they blew them, they destroyed themselves. They blew themselves up. Great example of kind of the cyclic way that I see civilization is the modern TV show Battlestar Galactica. Now, I'm a big fan of the old one from the 70s because that's what I grew up with. I'm a late Gen Xer. But in the new Battlestar Galactica, one of the really cool kind of story arcs is that they find out that, everybody's been a freaking Cylon. And it's been a repeating process of building up these massive, advanced, technologically advanced civilizations that destroy themselves over and over and over again. It happens for so long, over the course of millions and millions of years. People are like, oh, there was no civilization back then, but there was. It just was destroyed so long ago that there's very little remnants of it.
Yeah, there's definitely proof of cataclysms in the past. We have the Younger Dryas. We have
absolutely. Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah.
So like a flood from 12,000 years ago, 13,000 years ago. We have another major flood 40,000 years ago. I believe another cataclysm around like 120,000, between 150. There's cataclysms just ranging, and we see this idea of our world used to be one big continent, and if that was even the case, over time we wouldn't even have records of some of these civilizations, except if they were that great and megalithic, like we see in Peru, we see all across Egypt, and we see in certain places, right? And these things are megalithic. They could only be built by giants.
Yeah. I think of, for example, with the lost city of Atlantis, and where archaeologists have located that in kind of Bermuda, the Caribbean, and you have the Kissimmee Road, which is underwater, and just it's amazing, but it clearly built by a giant group of people. So
Edgar Casey speaks a lot about these areas.
And when you look at the Kissimmee Road, God doesn't draw in straight lines, but it's clearly a straight line. There's these huge rocks that look like they were made as a road for giant people. So go figure. But like you said, if there's a flood or something that happens, which is exactly what happened because they blew themselves up when the flood came, then most of what this civilization once was wiped out. But to attest, like you said, to the greatness of that civilization, we still have remnants of it. And we see this, like you said, South America, Teotihuacan, and all these other places. the remnants of these mighty civilizations still exist.
And what's also interesting is right now, all this research and all of the push for LiDAR, so there's millions being pushed into these factories down in Mexico. So it's going to be one of the biggest upcoming technologies that's going to revolutionize the world. We already see down in South America. We see in Central America.
The Guatemala
now even over
discovery,
here.
which they showed the city down there in Guatemala, was as big as any European city, in medieval times. Yeah, bigger, much bigger. So, and we didn't even know about it because it was covered up in forests. We didn't know about it until LiDAR. So, yeah.
And now when we hear the stories of our ancient tribes, speaking about, hey, the giants were here and they were building great cities, it's all coming out to be true. Just like what Matthew LaCroix is doing with Uruk and the Gilgamesh and all of these areas where there's 3 cities on top of each other, and it was around the Smithsonian folks in their days in early 1900s. They were like, well, the city at the bottom is the newest. What?
No.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I think over the next 10 years for archaeology, for archaeologists, historians.
I think it's going to flip things on its head completely. Yeah, which is good, which is what we need, because we've been learning the wrong things for too long.
Yeah, I mean, well, like, to think about it on a spiritual calendar perspective, we are in that new age where everything else that was in that lower vibration, seemingly that hateful vibration, that hateful energy. I mean, I don't understand astronomy and astrology the way the ancients did, but these guys were very foretelling about our current age, and it's shifting.
Yeah. Which is good, which is very good.
Yeah, and like right now too, with technology, we can see that we're reconnecting something that is much greater than just physicality. Like, it's actual ether. We're connecting people to ether again through these conversations. Now, all right, let's get into this, man. Bigfoot and giants. How does this all get along? Like, people think that they would be fighting for ages, and they were, but I think they were ancestors at one point. Or do you? How do you? Let's get into this. Well, can you tell me?
Yeah. So I recently wrote a book about this, the biblical Bigfoot. Bigfoot's always kind of been in the back of my mind. I've talked about a variety of giants in my work. If you read my work from Egypt to Ohio, but Bigfoot has always been in the background because he's this gigantic hairy creature, and I've always been interested about the question, what is Bigfoot's connection to the rest of these giants? And so, doing my own research, looking again at the biblical text, you see kind of a pattern where you have these kind of cursed individuals. Whatever cursed them, I come from I'm a spiritual, I'm a religious person, so I would say God. But whatever you think might have cursed them, something happened to these people that turned them into what we now identify as the Bigfoot or the Sasquatch. So the main example that I give is the story of King Nebuchadnezzar. Now, Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon, and he's responsible for the destruction of Jerusalem, the destruction of the first temple in 586 BCE. And there's a story about him in the book of Daniel where he's just like this kind of arrogant a-hole, just this massive prick, and he thinks that he's like, I'm the king, I rule everything, I'm great, and God smites him, and he basically starts to grow these claws. So it says like his hands become talons. He has a hairy body, and he walks around like a beast all over the earth. And he does this for a while until he realizes, that he's not the shit. He's not all that great. And then his sanity and his health and his hygiene is restored to him. And so I think that Bigfoot is one of these type of persons. I identify a couple candidates who could be Bigfoot. Cain and his progeny. So Cain is one of the first human beings mentioned in the Bible in the book of Genesis chapter 4. He is exiled, and it says that he has a wife and kids, and I think that they eventually wander over into North America. In fact, I think North America was actually the Garden of Eden. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I actually make an argument for that, not being in the Middle East, but here in what is now the United States. So Cain and his progeny really didn't go too much of anywhere. But there's other giants, there's other people that come over, such as the Nephites mentioned in another scriptural text, the Book of Mormon, who may have become later on through degeneracy, through being cursed for their actions, for their sins, may have become Bigfoot as well. I say all that, Joe, to say that Bigfoot has, in my view, some type of biblical connection.
There's even the Bible verse where God warns the woman, your seed will be at enmity. So, in reference
Yeah.
to how this is how
Yeah.
pretty much the seed wars, where in ancient history, we see that there's this biblical side, and then there's this more to say it, this fallen side, this demonic side, this darker side,
Yeah.
this cannibalistic side, and Cain is a reference of that,
Yeah.
where he murders his brother, and if it goes down into Esau, and Esau is born as the
Mhm.
hairy one, the smelly one, right?
Exactly.
And his brother
Exactly.
is over here taking his birthright, is taking his possessions, everything from him. He casts him out, like pretty much just gets him out of the life. Esau wants to get out. Esau
Yeah.
wants to leave. Like he has no good. He has no hope. He
Yeah.
goes out into the forest, and where I think he fights King Nimrod. Is that
Mm-hmm. Not no, not
King?
Nimrod, but one of the other kings. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So one of these ancient like Babylonian kings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, yep. So, Casey talks about this dualism that we get throughout history: the sons of light versus the sons of darkness. But yeah, I think Esau is a great example of that as well. Like you said, he's this hairy figure who's just cast out and doesn't have a place to go. So this is a theme. This is a pattern. And I think I don't think it's just a literary trope or a mythological trope. This is a pattern that we see throughout history, and specifically biblical history, of these big, what sounds very similar to how modern day people describe Bigfoot and the Sasquatch. We see this right away in the Bible itself.
Was it King Herod the Great?
I believe, I'm trying to think of who the king is. It's apocryphal tradition who Esau fights. But yes, so Esau, and it says Esau will always be, when Esau talks to Isaac, it says that Esau will always be against people. So he'll always be combative. He'll always be, hostile towards people. And this is exactly what we see with Bigfoot. People, the witnesses that we have to Bigfoot does a lot of just not nice stuff. He steals people's stuff. He attacks people. He's just kind of a punk. Going back to this, back to kind of the personality that we get with the ancient giants throughout history in various cultures.
Because if his human brother pretty much made him to what he was, like hated and despised and had nothing, he was born with that instinct way back. These ancestors, they get the spiritual pain, right? The spiritual memories, like my great grandfather Cain murdered his brother. And now I have to take the weight. In the Bible, it says that these lineages are cursed for 7 generations or more. And right here to go upon Esau in Exodus 17 through 8 through 16, Amalek is mentioned as the grandson of Esau. So like Amalek and the giants, right? The Amalekites, and these guys are giants. Even some of these giants are known to be cannibals and just very, very wild and wildebeest like.
In Native American history, so you have the Sikh Indians I mentioned earlier. I mean, the Sikh giants that I mentioned earlier. The Native Americans fight these guys for like centuries, and they're eating the indigenous people of the land, literally eating them up, and they're fighting them. So Native American folk, Native American tradition, these guys aren't really portrayed in a very good light.
Well, yeah. I mean, if we're looking at how over the last hundreds of years and thousands of years, how everything's been stripped out of normality, and it's seemingly I like to point at these two verses, the Revelation 2:9, Revelation 3:9, to kind of cover how all of the world is being deceived, where it says, watch out for those who say they are Jews but really the temple of Satan, the church of Satan, right? And these guys are infiltrating everything, right? So these tribes of all the 12 tribes, it's kind of putting these enmity versus their own brothers, Esau and the giants, where Native Americans kind of references too, where some of these giants are actually they weren't bad. Not all of the giants, not all of them, right?
Yeah.
Some of the giants were able to coexhibit and coexist, and we see in Greece that these giants were actually living amongst us.
Yeah, they were the heroes of old, and they tried to do good for people. They tried to do good for people around them. They fought for those who couldn't fight for themselves. So you do have good examples. But I think that there's for a lot of the giants, I would even say for most of them, they you just can you still hear me?
Yeah, no, dude, I can still hear you.
Okay, so yeah, I think most of the giants, especially the ones that you get in North and South America and even in European tradition, aren't so nice. But like you said, there are exceptions to that. If you read, for example, Josephus says that, Hercules and a lot of these, Greek heroes, Achilles, etc., were themselves giants. And they try to do good for other people. Now, Hercules, he has kind of a shady history too, because he kills his own kids and stuff like that. But then he tries to atone for it. He tries to make up for it. He's one of the good ones.
Now, when we look at the actual context of what these giant races were doing and how they were living and thriving, we see it all in their religious texts, their symbology. We see the technologies, the pyramids, these ancient sites, these sound temples in Malta. We see the Stonehenges, all these great things that were taught to us by the giants, by the fallen angels, and the angels referenced in the book of Enoch. And it wasn't just one type of mysticism. I don't think at all. I think that there was all sorts of different type of, for lack of better words, magic being passed down. Yes, there was the cults of Baal, and cults of these crazy ones, doing child sacrifice and black magic and all this dark magic. But then there were also there were these tribes that were able to tap into the star people, as in natives reference them. We see there's the Gizas is reference to Orion. We know that all these different sites are referenced to certain star systems. And when we look at them as a cosmogram or cosmodrome, what is it? I think a cosmogram. So they're referencing the Stargate and portal back to the stars, because these ancestors came from there.
Exactly. So
one of the giants, that's why we see all these different layers of giants. We see the different type of gods.
Yeah. One of my favorites. So I connect in my book From Egypt to Ohio, I connect the Native American mounds with, having their origin in this civilization of giants. And one of my favorite mounds, which I was at a few years ago when COVID was pretty heavy, was the Newark Earthworks in Ohio. And they're very heavily connected with the constellations, very much aligned with the constellations. But the Newark Earthworks is one of the oldest religious sites, not just in what's now America, but in the world. It goes back to 30,000 years or so, but extremely, extremely old. So kind of going back to that primordial wisdom, that primordial esoteric knowledge or magic, as you called it, which stems directly from the giants.
One of the most mysterious orders that I still have not been able to figure out is the Order of Melchizedek. They were able to pull essential oils. They were able to walk on water. They were able to touch and heal people. Jesus was able to transport himself through the world and appear.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm a Latter-day Saint. That's my religious background, not with the Salt Lake Church, but another tradition. And we have in Latter-day Saint religion, there's two priesthoods. There's the Aaronic priesthood, which is basically the priesthood that you get in the first 5 books of the Bible, the Old Testament, and then there's also the Melchizedek priesthood. So we claim to descend from the order of Melchizedek, and Melchizedek priesthood is the higher priesthood. That has more going again to what you were saying, the esoteric knowledge than the Aaronic priesthood. So the Aaronic priesthood focuses on rituals and sacrifice, killing the bull, killing the cow, doing all the rituals of the temple. But the Melchizedek priesthood is kind of seen as the primordial priesthood, the priesthood that comes directly from, the Son of God that existed before the Aaronic priesthood.
And when we're looking at the third, this third order that's kind of referenced in the Bible, we see King Solomon, and we see these lesser keys of Solomon. It's referenced or mentioned or theorized, speculated, and just through research, that this lesser key of Solomon has 72 sigils of encasing these demons, these these fallen angels. Would you reference that these are the giants that we see that in ancient past, where I think in the Bible it says one of these fallen angels is thrown down into an abyss and locked?
Yeah, well, I think there's always been a connection. So the Nephilim, that term in Hebrew literally means the fallen ones. It's a Hebrew participle, masculine plural participle. It means the fallen ones. And that's often been taken within theological circles to refer to fallen spiritual beings. Now, the term Nephilim, when you look at other translations of the Bible, so the Greek Old Testament or Septuagint, and one of my favorites, since I'm a Latin teacher, the Latin Vulgate, Nephilim is translated as gigantes. So there's a direct connection between what these seem to be, these fallen spiritual beings, and the giants. You also see this connection going to Edgar Cayce and his discussion of Atlantis. These kind of fallen spiritual beings from Atlantis, they fell and they become kind of material beings, and they were kind of in their pristine state. They were giants as well. So this is a connection that's found not just in the Bible, but in esoteric, New Age discussions as well.
Yeah, in the Emerald Tablets, I believe they refer to them as sons of light, sons of darkness.
Yep. So Billy Carson talks about the Emerald Tablets quite a bit. So
yeah, I sat for a few hours and listened to the Emerald Tablets one night, and I swear I had a revelation like no other. I mean it. Like, I felt like an angelic presence was upon me the next day, where I figured out, like, wait, all these religions are trying to tell us something very true.
Yeah.
We look right now, and the truth is coming before us. Bigfoot is here. Bigfoot is being
been here for many centuries.
Well,
thousands of years. Yeah.
Right now in Ohio through Washington State, there's a lot of sightings. There's a lot of sightings right now.
I was just driving to Kentucky, giving actually a couple of lectures on Atlantis. I had an amazing time. Shout out to the people at Hopkinsville Museum in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. But I drove through Ohio and I drove through West Virginia. And West Virginia has both the Mothman there. So that whole place, Joe, is West Virginia, Ohio, full of sightings of all these really cool, gigantic, amazing creatures. So you have the Mothman. So I went to visit the Mothman Museum in Point Pleasant. But there was also, right near the hotel I was staying at in Charleston, about an hour away, there's a Bigfoot museum as well, the West Virginia Bigfoot Museum. And like you said, there's a bunch of sightings in Ohio. So Bigfoot is all over the Midwest. I mean, he's in the Pacific as well. He's in California and Washington, but also in the Midwest, there's a heavy Bigfoot presence.
you're talking about cryptids, and I think back to Exodus when I believe it's either Moses or Solomon. I think Solomon was told by God, "You're going to be commanded to research everything that all the herbs, all the animals,
Yep.
all the creatures and things that creepeth and crawleth." And when in reference to our ancient past, I see statues. I see statues all over the place. Reference to these ancient ones, these draconians, these reptilians. We see Göbekli Tepe. They have these
Mm-hmm.
we have statues of, you know, human hybrids and chimeras all across
Yeah.
Egypt. I know that Egypt
Easter
has these
Easter Island, for example, you know, you
Rapa
have these
Nui and the
giants. Yep.
Maui.
Mhm. Yep.
And
Exactly.
so all of these hybrids, and in my opinion, were part of our ancient pantheon where God was like, I need to wipe away the earth for everything, all the abominations I created in
Yeah.
reference to those, because they kind of got out of hand where we see in the rebellion, Lucifer commanded 33 of these sons of darkness, or you know, whatever, how many
Yeah.
sons of darkness, to go with him and to rule upon these principalities and these locations around the world. So we see these different pantheons of deities and gods who were procreating, coming
Yeah.
down here and taking our women, you know, creating Bigfoot like offspring.
Yeah. And
But
it seems like the same story everywhere because, you know, in Greek mythology, the Titanomachy, the war of, you know, the war of the giants and stuff, the war of the Titans sounds very similar to what, you know, Lucifer is doing, you know, with these angels. So I think, you know, this is a tradition that gets disseminated all over the place. In in Atlantis, you know, they're doing all of this, you know, weird hybrid stuff as well, you know, between humans and giants, creating some really, really weird stuff between humans and animals, destroying them, recreating, destroying, recreating. So this is a pattern that we see, you know, like you said, throughout various cultures. And I think
could you
the
could you
same.
talk about what type of animals they're creating?
Well, they're creating you know, they're creating human animal hybrids. So, you know, humans with, you know, the face of a bull, or humans who have the body of a horse, or humans that have, you know, the body of a fish. So I think, you know, the stories that we get of, you know, people finding, you know, pirates finding mermaids. I'm thinking of Pirates of the Caribbean and Treasure Island.
Well,
And all those
Medusa.
things that
Medusa was an
Medusa.
offspring of that species of I believe that's related to the Naga, the
Yeah.
Naga of the ancient sea reptilian race.
Yes. Yes. So I don't think, you know, we talk about mermaids as mythology. I don't think that they're mythology at all. I think these are creatures are remnants of, you know, this kind of experimentation that these ancient advanced civilizations were doing. So and my good
Have you
friend Agina, shout out to him. You know, he has pictures that people have of, you know, these actual mermaids, and it's not a hoax. It's not somebody putting, like, you know,
I would love to see those.
yeah. So he has them on his website. So you know, these things actually existed, and they all point back to this, you know, ancient experimentation that was being done. And going back to your point at the beginning of the show, you know, if we don't learn from our past, we're doomed to repeat the mistakes of the future. You know, I think all of these, you know, this weird stuff that they were doing, and the outcome of it is a warning to us, you know, who are doing kind of the same thing. And, you know, talking about AI and the rise of AI, you know, we're messing with things the way that the Atlanteans did. And if we're not careful, you know, we could be bringing about our own destruction. So we got to learn. It's very important to learn from the past.
I I agree with that. Hey, just for a quick funny little thing. Have you ever heard about the pigs being a curse, where pigs were only made because they're a chimera from humans?
Yes, I have heard that.
And that's
Yeah.
why we should never eat them. I actually
Yes,
gave up
yeah.
pork like almost a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I haven't looked back. I don't even drink alcohol anymore. I feel like that Bulgaris parasite, or whatever type of parasites out there,
Yeah.
it's no longer in me, man. Like, I feel very clean.
Well, I have to admit, and I feel, you know, as a priesthood holder, technically, if we go by biblical rules, I shouldn't be eating pork, but I love me some bacon. I love me some bacon and some
Hey,
pork chop.
turkey sausage just tastes the same. It tastes the same.
I know. I need to transition to that. But yeah, I have dear friends. I have some Muslim friends who have, they say not only because it's prohibited in the Quran and stuff like that, but because the pig is a chimera. They told me, they're like, don't bother with him. So, but yeah, I need to slowly wean myself off of bacon because I love bacon to death.
Hey, you'll thank all of us. You'll thank all of us later when you do. So about these chimeras, right? Like they're here today with these Mothmen, with the Bigfoot, and in the ancient past, I believe they were bigger, they were more, they were much grander and larger.
Yeah.
We see that the fauna die off every cataclysm is 40%, 50%, 60%. That's all life forces and
Yeah.
animal DNA and species.
Things get smaller and smaller. I like to say, according to modern evolutionary biology, things are getting, bigger and stuff. But when you look at, the development of how things have gone in the world, we're getting smaller and smaller. Think of what we see in the Southwest, where you have what appear to have been these gigantic trees and even some rock formations, which I think personally are fossils of gigantic animals.
Yep.
We don't have that anymore. The animals are getting smaller and smaller. So I think I think there's a de-evolution of everything rather than again the traditional view that we're the pinnacle of civilization. I'm like, no, man, we're going down. We're decreasing.
Well, have you do you subscribe to the next evolution of human is the human and spiritist, or the is it like the spiritist aspect of where like we're turning back into ethereal? So a lot of us are becoming higher transcendents. We're becoming very.
I think that's happening now with and especially with the UFO disclosure and stuff like that. I think that the UFOs and I think there's a giant connection with them in kind of a more positive way. I think this UFO disclosure is kind of leading towards that. And this goes back to kind of, the ancient Gnostic tradition where the goal was to kind of leave the material and become the ether, become the more spiritual. And, that was the original, and I've mentioned this on other shows before, that was the original earliest form of Christianity. So if you look at the Gospel of John, Jesus is saying, I'm not of this world. My followers are not of this world. God is spirit, and those who want to worship God must worship God in spirit and in truth. It's very much, and biblical scholars will acknowledge this. Mainstream biblical scholars will acknowledge this. It's very much a Gnostic worldview, and this is coming from the earliest Gospels, the earliest traditions that we have, even in our New Testament. I think the New Testament, I've talked about this on other shows with the Council of Nicaea. It's clearly a chosen text, chosen by those who were in power and those in authority. But it contains, even within the New Testament, we have this ancient wisdom that we get, like in the Gospel of John and in the other Gospels, where the goal is to overcome this materiality and become ether. So even Paul says very clearly, flesh and blood will not inherit the kingdom of God. So I think we're finally getting back to that in this day and age. So I think, it's not all lost. I think that I actually think that there's a lot of, as you mentioned earlier, positive things that are happening in human development.
And John 8:23, Jesus declares, "You are from below, I am from above.
Exactly.
You are of this world, I am not of this world."
Yep.
I think that there is some truth to him being more than just a man. And I don't take the Bible lightheartedly. I know that it's been twisted by all these different councils, but Jesus is the truth. That's fact.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Fact. And I think if Jesus was here today, he'll be flipping tables all over the White House. Man, he'll be whipping them, Get away.
Yeah, I don't think Jesus wouldn't be happy with a lot of people. Yeah.
No, dude, I actually think, man, like how many Christian church or like how many churches would be scorned at by Jesus? Like even in the biblical days, Jesus only went to a few churches. He's like, yo, the rest of y'all fake.
Yeah, well, Jesus' arch enemies were the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and those were the two main religious institutions in his time. So yeah.
Yeah, and these guys are still in rule today.
Well, the
Hey,
remnant,
man,
yes.
we're about 5 minutes away from break, so we still got a couple minutes. All right, so what I was referencing, and how these cryptids are related to this ancient past. Where do you think the missing link was? Over the last 12,000 years, since the last cataclysm, we see that there's just a die off. We know there's a die off, but where are we missing something? What are we missing are we missing a race? Are we missing a civilization? The 66 books or the 60 some books of the Bible that are banned, like there's something clearly taken humanity out of the true picture. Where do you think it is?
Yeah. For me, and I always say this, I think it was, the Council of Nicaea where humanity starts to go off the tracks. I think it was the Council of Nicaea. So I think when this esoteric knowledge, when the elites, when the ruling class start to get hold of this esoteric knowledge, they pervert it, they distort it so that they can control everybody else. And I think that, the penultimate example of that was the Council of Nicaea, when it creates this, basically creates this New Testament out of this, these ancient gospels and Paul's letters, but really kind of rejects a bunch of books, a bunch of esoteric books, the Book of Enoch, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Judas, rejects a bunch of books to kind of create a religion that will make people, subservient to the elites. And I think that's where we went off the trails. And that's where you see kind of the begin, Rome falls at about 100 years after that, 150 years after that. And then what do we have in history? We have a dark age. And we really don't come up out of that until people start challenging what has been established by the council with the
Renaissance.
That has been established at the Council of Nicaea in the Renaissance, and then later on in the Enlightenment.
And it's and what I think this is sacred geometry, our disconnection to sacred geometry, the energy points, our understanding of healing, holistic medicine, prayer, ether, all around the world. There were these great sites by the men of renown, and they were just barely dying off. And when these Council of Nicaea and these different agencies, these different darker agencies, these satanic type of agencies, they wanted to destroy the spirituality. From what I know is that when the books started getting banned, it was because they wanted to make it more physical. They wanted to make the church only physical. They didn't want it. They didn't want it spiritual. They didn't want it ethereal. They didn't want all this talk about angels and mystical healing and metaphysical divinity.
And going back to your point, geographical sites. So what happens? So you go to, a Native American mound, for example, and there's healing energy. And I felt this many times when I was at the Newark Earthworks. And I've been to mounds all over the country. Native American mounds are one of my favorite things. You feel a healing energy. So what a lot of organized religions did, and you see this especially with Christianity, they would build churches, a material thing on these sacred sites to kind of hide the energy and the energy and the ether of these sites from people. So you go in and your focus is on the material building rather than on the healing energies of these different sites. And I think that was absolutely deliberate. And if you look at the history of Europe, where the Templar I think the Templars kind of had, they were kind of in tune to this, but with the Catholic Church, not to bash Catholics, but just saying, the medieval church, they would build churches on these sites where there was healing energy to kind of obscure, to kind of obstruct that healing energy.
But some of these cathedrals were actually using, these geometrical, these electromagnetic points.
Yes, and they got then the mainstream church basically did away with those orders. So the Templars, the Cathars, these kind of medieval Gnostic traditions that go back to kind of what the teachings we have in the Gospels and in the Gnostic writings. They built their churches, they built their cathedrals using these geometrical designs aligned with these healing energies, and the mainstream church persecuted them, destroyed their cathedrals and sites.
And these places all around the world, they're tied to an electromagnetic current, the ley lines, the chakra lines of the world. These lines also, from what I see, is they're more than just energy. They're spiritual. We would know that these native places and these native cultures would meditate. They would receive messages from God. They would receive messages from the heavens, see the star people. They were one in tune with the universe, where nowadays people aren't even in tune to themselves, their own mind. They're very, very disconnected. On the ethereal standpoint, the mind, body, soul has been tarnished. People are injecting themselves with false type of medicines, and these medicines are technological and biological, causing DNA disruption, mental disruption. But it's
injecting nanites into your body. So
man, and that goes and destroys the spirit too. Where now I think that just to kind of die down, Stranger Things and these shows are out here telling people there's a dark side and you're getting flipped into it, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. All
right, guys, there's 1 hour mark. We're gonna go ahead and take a few minute break, water break, tea break, maybe my dog's got to go pee break, one of those guys. So let me go ahead and get to a commercial, and we will, where is it? Jeez. All right, here we go. Be back.
Gonna go far, that's what we on the run for, go hard. Sipping gin while we sitting, spitting those bars. Getting rich, got a vision, get the show cards. Lot of money laying around cause we go hard, always go hard. Spitting fire, see the sonar, hope they resonate with the vibe. Feel like Mozart, really I'm alive in my soul, feel like Mozart. That's what hoes are, too explosive so I show art. Yeah, I make art, sad to see people with no heart. I work to replace all of the negative, I go far with it. I'ma show all of these bitches, no complaining if you with it. Don't you dream me, see the vision, need my energy, the mission. Really take all my precision, every single day I picture where I'll be the day we get it. Feed the brothers, feed the fam, I don't really give a damn. I don't wanna get famous, I wanna lend a hand. Give the cash and rubber bands to the people always standing on my side, always down the ride, say I planned it. I'm the guy, life is supersized on the planet. In my mind, I don't gotta try, I already have it. I'll be doing damage, I was born a savage. In my mind, I already died, living lavish. Heaven is a state of mind, be glad if you have it. Living in a simulation, be patient to grab it. Universe will bring it to you if you ain't an average. If you live an average, then Satan's bound to manage your life. I'm just trying to tell you, if you gonna roll the dice, gamble in your life instead of living precise. I ain't perfect, but I'm gonna earn it. No, it don't concern anybody but my person. Lesson that I learned is that people are gonna burn. Anything you do, they gonna pay the price. Nothing nice come in life for the dipshits. They just wish shit, never gonna manifest it. Never catch me resting, short-term blessings. I just want my brain to work so I can write my next hit. Ignite the blessings, manifest my life, never question a moment in my life. I be knowing that it's meant to be, this my destiny. All the rest of my life really history. The day that I'm finally gone, they'll be missing me. Your position be the reason that I'm gone. 200 songs done, I've been on the run. I ride a wave, make a way, I'm the one. I stay the same, but I'm changing a ton. Rearranging my brain for the gains through the sun. I've been absorbing the light, I could say that I won. At least I'm conscious of what I'm doing, praying a ton. Relay all the information, staying patient with the shit. I write a hit just to get through all the shit. I ain't a bitch, so I'll make it. I ain't dealing with a prick, I'm finna take over the game. Really, I'm getting in. I'm really glad that you're here to witness it. I'm about to not new. What I do, I've been at it for a minute, pursuing doing the damage new. I would do everything that I said.
I'm back. I almost blew up my Coca-Cola bottle in the freezer. I'm sorry, guys. Oh my god, it's free. It's fizzling now. If it was 5 more minutes, I swear this glass bottle would have blown up. I did not mean to leave it in the freezer. Man, today was just like so smoky. My mind couldn't just settle down. I was high energy though. I went to a local hill and climbed it, so about 2 to 3 miles maybe uphill. It was great. I feel like these mountains, as we touched on earlier, these mountains and all around us are the remnants of ancient giants, giant trees, giant mushrooms. When we look into cave networks, they call them veins of stone, veins of ore, veins of metals and minerals. And when you look at like how these are shaped, these mines and these mountains, and you see eyes and teeth, you just gotta wonder, like, are we really just walking on giants? What do you think?
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I think I was muted there for a sec. Yeah, I absolutely think that we are. I think that most of what is now North America is basically the ruins of these ancient giants, and you see that in the history of people uncovering stuff from these Native American mounds. They find, these gigantic, they find these gigantic creatures. Even in my tradition, the Latter-day Saint tradition, there's a story about the prophet Joseph Smith, who finds a giant in a mound as he's traveling the Midwest. So I think these guys are everywhere. They left traces. They left traces themselves behind everywhere. And I think that, a lot of their record has been suppressed, has been ignored, but it's still all around us.
Do you think that maybe that these Bigfoots and these giants are known to be in these very hard to get places because they're like guardians of some sort? I think in some sort they're guardians.
Well, it's really weird because when you listen to, the some of the stories about Bigfoot, they'll take people to places that really haven't been explored. So Albert Osman, he has an encounter with Bigfoot where he takes him to this valley, like in British Columbia, that nobody's explored. So I think that, whatever the case may be, these giants, these creatures are located in deliberately obscure places that haven't really been examined, that haven't really been explored by human beings. I think that there's also a connection kind of to the hidden or interior world, if you know that model. That
Yeah, you're in
these
my mind. Inner Earth.
Inner Earth, yes,
Agartha.
exactly, Inner Earth. That these creatures might be connected with. So if we could get to the Inner Earth, we probably see a lot more of them. But I think that there's a whole kind of undiscovered world there that these creatures, that Bigfoot, that the remnants of Bigfoot kind of point to.
Well, when we look at World War II and Admiral Byrd and his expedition down there into Antarctica, he references how he was contacted by the beings down there. They talked about the inner Earth and the inner civilizations, and the inner civilizations were the world below Agartha was inhabited by the highest most intelligent civilizations ever known in history, where the Incas and all of these different very highly technological races were. And to look at it like on a very, very esoteric level, I do think that if there is an alien treaty, this greater treaty that is supposedly with Eisenhower and the other guy,
True,
this
yeah.
we would see it in the ancient past sense, where all of these cryptids, all of these species that were known to talk, the birdmen, the dogmen, all of these different things, who were known to have their intelligence, um, they had to survive. And when the flood came, they had to figure out a way. They went into inner Earth. Native Americans talk about it as the Ant-Men and the different the different creatures that came from inner Earth that helped them.
Yeah. And Admiral, I'm glad you mentioned the UFO connection, because he says he saw flying saucers there and everything. So these may have been, the remnants of advanced races, even Atlantis, that survived, and their technology is there. So, but I'm glad you referenced that story, because it's often overlooked that we did have an expedition go to the inner world, and they saw things. A lot of people gloss over that, but there is eyewitness testimony about that.
And just to think, when we look at right now, I research so much. Like, I spend a lot of my time just reading books, watching documentaries, listening to people who are experiencers or archaeologists or historians, and trying to put it together, because like my life's been a mystery ever since I've been a child. I've been having dreams of giants, and I've been having dreams of extraterrestrials. I've seen UFOs. I've had I've been having paranormal sightings all over them. Like, I even live in a house where someone had died, and I know the ghost is still walking around, and I'm very in touch with the spirit and ether, and it's
I
very
don't think a lot of
fascinating.
people. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are. We become so materialistic. Kind of going back to what we were talking about before break, where the materiality has just been kind of dumped over over the spiritual. A lot of people aren't really in tune anymore. But I think that's slowly changing in this new age.
Right? I mean, yes, there's a lot of hope for us,
Yeah.
where the technology is here. We know that these EMF readers, these sound readers, are picking up real lights. We know that we can mess with the spectrum to see into the infrared to see these different crafts, and even mess with Bigfoot. All right, like, how much do you think that they're helpers with each other? So, like, but I mean, the Bigfoot and the UFOs.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think that I know that they're often grouped together For myself, just from my own research on Bigfoot, I don't think that Bigfoot is really that cognitive or that smart of a creature. Like I said, when we connect Bigfoot with the biblical tradition, he seems to be kind of a cursed creature who just roams around, and he knows of these obscure places, but he kind of just wanders around, does his own thing, messes with people from time to time, steals their stuff, attacks them and stuff. For myself, the UFOs point to a much more higher spiritual knowledge, and I honestly think that the UFOs have been trying to enlighten us, have been trying to help us for many, many, many centuries, for thousands of years. I even think that to some extent they're kind of the basis of our world religions. The best parts of our religions, I think, come from these people in the sky. So they've been trying to help us for thousands of years, trying to bring us, enlightenment. And I think the message has gotten obscured by kind of the elites kind of taking advantage of that. Even, you mentioned the Eisenhower, the meeting with the UFOs. I think that, that was one way where this knowledge got obscured, but things are coming to light now, especially with UFO disclosure, to show that, they've been with us, like I said, for thousands of years, and that they're trying to help us. So the UFOs, for myself, in contrast to Bigfoot, the UFOs point to a much higher intelligence, a much higher spiritual intelligence that's trying to ultimately, and yes, you have bad UFOs out there, you have screwed up UFOs. Some people say, some of the UFOs are demonic. That could be possible, but I think in large part, the UFOs are, the Palladians and Ashtar Command and the Galactic Federation. They're trying to help us. And if you look at their messages are very similar to what we get in, Jesus' teachings in portions of the New Testament, and some of the kind of esoteric teachings that we have in the Old Testament as well.
I believe that our ancient ancestors did have craft. We look at Vermana from the ancient Vedic. And
the Mahabharata is basically those craft were basically spaceships, like Star Destroyers and stuff, that we have in science fiction.
And they were inhabited by our ancestors, these angels, and these light-bodied hybrids too, who they could be bird people, but they had a higher intelligence. And I do think all across the board, some of these entities do have divine intelligence, do have higher intelligence, whether it be mantis, how some people say, a lion beings, all these different beings, they were referenced in stone, in statues, in ancient history. But even more importantly, to talk about Bigfoot and how there probably is a real divine intelligence with some of them. I'm going to go ahead and reference, for everybody out there, a list of giant, or not giant, but Bigfoot type creatures. So we start with skunk ape, found in Florida, noted for its strong odor and reddish hair. We have the yowie, Australia's aggressive hairy hominid. We have the mapiguari in South America, potentially a relic giant ground sloth or bipedal ape. We have the Wendigo, a spiritual or interdimensional entity in Native American lore, distinct from physical hominids. Could be like a skinwalker in sense. Some of these cultures would say that these some of these creatures could change in shapes and literally shift shape. Next, we have the Chinese Yeren, which is the China's wild man, reported in central China, described as a tall bipedal creature covered in reddish brown hair. We have Almas, found in the Caucasus and Altai Mountains, often described as more human-like and smaller than other Bigfoots, still hairy. We have the Chuchuna, a Siberian cryptid, described as a large, muscular, dark-haired hominin. We have the Himalayan Yeti, with Tibetan folklore describing three types: the large bear-like Zute, the classic ape man Mete, and the small frog-eating Teima. We have Batut Tut, a creature from Vietnam reported to leave chimpanzee-like footprints. We have the Ibu Gogo, a small 2 to 3 foot hairy hominid from the folklore of Flores, Indonesia, said to be capable of speech and tool use. The orange pendek from the island of Sumatra. This creature is much smaller, described as a graceful bipedal ape man with reddish fur, 3 to 5 feet tall. We have the Ukamar, a giant humanoid reported in the Andes Mountains, and the Solomon Island giants. Legends of Papua New Guinea speak of giant hominids. And like these Ewoks from Star Wars, they're referencing this small hairy creature. I've heard of
Mhm.
another name of it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, there's just within Native American lore, there's a bunch of different type of Bigfoot creatures. So you mentioned the Wendigo, but there's also the Tornit, there's a Strendu, there's a Chino, there's the Oma, there's the Sokum. So all of these are basically Bigfoot type Sasquatch type
And
creatures. So
and some of these have speaking capabilities where they don't necessarily speak in English. They have like this hybrid speech is what I've heard.
yeah,
Also what I know is that in hundreds of Bigfoot stories, they have psychic abilities where they are able to telepathically communicate with strangers or even Native Americans.
well, that's what happened with Ostman. Bigfoot telepathically communicated with him to come to follow him to this unknown region where other Bigfoot creatures were living. Bigfoot he doesn't talk. According to the witnesses, he doesn't talk all that much. But there is mental telepathy, like you said, and there is one story in Latter-day Saint tradition. You have a couple of stories of Bigfoot, and there is one story where Bigfoot actually speaks to a person and tells him who he is and what his purpose is. So you do get Bigfoot speaking, not a lot, but from time to time you do get Bigfoot speaking.
I would imagine that it's hard for them to speak when we see at the Tower of Babel, all of humanity kind of got thrown off course. Like,
Mm-hmm.
everybody had to start speaking their own languages. And
Yep.
if
Yep.
if records show that all of us were living out, these hairy men, these giants, these different races, we're all living together at one time, then yeah, it's going to be hard for us to understand them. We also have this Native American story from 1924 in the Oregonian paper, where days after a Sasquatch attack, these three native tribes come around. This was just referenced on the Joe Rogan podcast with Dave Pilates, and these native tribes come around and they stop the local militia and townspeople, the little army, from fighting back. And they're like, no, we talk with the Bigfoot and we trade with them, and
Yeah.
these Bigfoots have been known to leave them items or meats or different things, and the natives will feed them.
Yeah. Well, I think the natives have
So
a
that
very, kind of spiritual connection with the Bigfoot. Some of that, I would say fear, not in the sense of how we as modern Westerners define the term, but kind of fear in kind of the biblical sense. So, yare, in the Hebrew term, where there's kind of a awe, there's kind of a wonder about the Bigfoot, about the Sasquatch within Native American tradition. So their dynamic, their dialectic towards the Bigfoot is much different, I think, than what it is for for Westerners.
And I would think like our native ancestors probably feel so connected, because they know at one point in time they might have had to come over from these boats or from these different locations and migrate. I think when we actually when I look at Cherokee, right? I believe it's Cherokee that have like ancient Hebrew like type of DNA.
Yes, they're connected to the ancient Israelites, directly connected. So the
This
Black
theory goes
Irish
back.
Cherokee in particular are connected to the ancient Israelites.
And you were talking about this place being very ancient. You think it has to relate with the Garden of Eden. I was just thinking like over the last week about how Americas seemingly have the last remnant of giants. And I mean
Yeah,
big giants. Like over when we look at South America, these were the giants that were being kicked out of, the cannibalistics, and
yeah.
these weren't welcome over there in the Middle East.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a trajectory. I think the reason that you have the last remnant of the giants here on the American continent, I think that many times the giants, and I mentioned this in my book From Egypt to Ohio, the giants traveled a course. So I think that, they started in the ancient Near East, went through Europe, and that's where you get the stories of giants, Gog and Magog, and stuff like that in the British traditions, in the Norwegian and the German giants, and then they crossed the Atlantic to North America, so to the American continent. So that's why the end point of the giants is here on this continent rather than in the old world.
You think when did they migrate? You think that this had to do with Atlantis and Lemuria
I
when
think
they
they
were
were,
still around?
I think there were multiple migrations. So I think that they knew of this path, and whenever there was a cataclysm, call it Atlantis or the destruction of the Jerusalem temple or something like that, they would or the flood, they would migrate over to here. So I think there were multiple migrations, and I think Atlantis was one of those times when they migrated.
Atlantis. The tales seemingly are unreal,
Yeah.
epic. What do you think their connection to the biblical story was?
I think that for myself, I've always thought that the Nephilim were kind of were this ancient unknown civilization to the biblical authors. So by the time the biblical authors and going kind of intersecting with mainstream biblical scholarship. So by the time that the priestly and the Yahwist authors or editors were composing their stories and they talk about the Nephilim, they don't know that the Nephilim are so ancient, they don't really know the civilization that they came from. It's always in my contention that the Nephilim were connected to the lost the civilization of Atlantis. But by the time that you have the biblical authors, so in mainstream biblical studies, you have multiple sources for the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books of the Bible. It's not believed that Moses himself wrote them, as is the traditional view, but you had multiple sources, and the earliest of these were the Yahwist source and the Elohist source in the 9th and 8th centuries BCE. By that time, when they're looking at these traditions that were handed down to them about the Nephilim, they don't know the civilization that they came from, but we know the civilization that they came from, which is Atlantis.
I like to think that our ancient history, they knew technologies so great it would make us be embarrassed today.
Yeah.
Crystalline technologies, metal technologies, energy
Well, they
technology.
had, we talk about flying cars. My disappointment, I was like I said, I'm an '80s kid. I used to watch Back to the Future Part 2. I remember seeing that in theaters with my dad, and they had the flying cars, and I was like, oh, that'd be so cool once they have that in 2015. 2015 came, no flying cars, but the Atlanteans did have that type of technology.
Can you speak about that? I haven't heard that.
Well, it wasn't flying cars per
Flying.
se, but they had, we would call them airships that were solar powered, so that they could fly. They travel from place to place in these flying airships. So think of blimps that were solar powered.
From the ancient past? Like
Yes.
10,000 years ago, 20,000?
Yes.
What do you
When
think?
Atlantis was in its golden age, so even earlier, I would say 50,000 years ago,
50,000 years
they
ago.
had these flying vehicles.
Right now, there is a lot of speculation how humanity, not even speculation, actually, a lot of proof coming out. Humanity's going back like 100,000 to 1 million years.
Yes. So way before, so human civilization appears to, and Göbekli Tepe, my friend Andrew Collins talks about this. Graham Hancock has talked about this. Goes way before what modern anthropologists would consider the beginnings of human civilization. And Göbekli Tepe is interesting because the latest parts of Göbekli Tepe are the least advanced. The oldest parts are the most advanced. So you would think that there would be an evolution, according to modern anthropology, modern evolutionary biology. You think that there would be an evolution in civilization from the most primitive to the most refined. It's actually the opposite. The oldest is the most advanced, and the youngest parts of later parts of Göbekli Tepe are the least.
It's the same as Sacsayhuaman over in Peru, where these sites, we see them layered three different layers. We see the Incan layer, we see the Olmec layer, or and then we see what they say was before it, the Awasi, or I'm not too sure.
I believe. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And those would be what we know as these angels, these giants, these it seems like they passed down a language. Do you believe in this Enochian language?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
I heard
and that's attested to in various traditions. So kind of a divine language that got passed down to various people. We have that in Latter-day Saint tradition. There's an Adamic language that's very similar. That was passed down. And was forgotten by the majority of the human of humanity, just like the Enochian language.
And these languages are thousands of years old, supposedly, right?
Yep.
Okay.
The language of angels, aka the language of the giants.
There's a podcast I listen to, a very, very informational podcast where like this guy actually does research. He doesn't like to pull strings. The Confessionals with Tony Merkel. There's an episode that is probably one of his most favorited, most listened to. It's called it's like the Enochian the military Enochian something, the crashed Enochian military site. I'm gonna have to get the exact title. So on there, he talks about a special forces American military member and them going down to Antarctica. They're there to investigate a craft, a UFO crash site. They go down and they start experiencing some weird glitches in reality, like time warping. He was there sent to protect scientists from the military. The military's like, hey, like, we need you guys to understand this and figure this out. In there, the scientists and the military member say they see an Enochian language on this UFO craft.
Yeah.
And so the scientists start like really getting serious. Like, this is high level, this is top level. Like, you cannot be telling anybody this. On the way back, they start like getting attacked by some type of entities, some spirited type of entities, some ethereal, some like shape-shifting type of, and they experience time glitches, and it was by far one of the most replayed. I know for sure, like a lot of people throughout his fan base and throughout the people that have him on guest episodes, like they talk about this episode because we know when we do enough research, there's some truth to this. And from what I've heard, even in the, like with Admiral Byrd, when they talk about these craft were very seemingly they had symbols on it. It wasn't just like Nazis, but there was others. There's other stories.
When you look at Roswell, for example, there's traditions and there's testimony that the Roswell aircraft had Hebrew symbols on it, which would kind of point to kind of this Enochian type of language. My late friend Nick Pope, he talks about the Rendlesham Forest incident. That spacecraft seemed to have had ancient writings on it as well. So this is a phenomenon found in a lot of UFO sightings.
And some of them even have hieroglyphs.
Yes, yes.
So they're using ancient symbols, and I think they're like power nodes. They're like they're either like they attract energy, or they do something to the ether. I'm not too sure how they mess with the ether, but I know that they warp with like emotion and time, and
Yeah,
they can.
yeah. And I think a lot
very
of the reasons why UFOs seem to phase in and out is because of this relationship that they have with this ether.
It's very fascinating
Yeah.
to think about the Enochian aspect of like how we see with this King Solomon too. He had an understanding of these languages. Right now, there's this missing connection might be what I was talking about in the last segment. This missing connection might just be that, like, we have a language to the stars, to the entities above, and we have visuals, and we can find ways, but we're not being shown, and we've been dimmed out of that language, that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think, but it's funny because if you look at, people like Cornelius Agrippa, Albertus Magnus and stuff, they were talking about this Enochian language. So even with this suppression of this language, there were still people who had this knowledge all throughout history and continued to pass it down.
Can you speak on those?
Yeah. So Cornelius Agrippa, he was a occultist and mystic in the Middle Ages. And he
Rome,
taught,
right?
yes. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I went to Rome in 2022, and I got a bunch of, they were selling them on this street that led to the Vatican. They had a bunch of occult books, and they had a bunch of his books. So in Rome, the Cornelius Agrippa books that I have over here on my bookshelf, I bought those while I was in Rome. So, but he argued for a language. He said that this language had a power to control spirits, even the worst kind of spirits. He had a very interesting philosophy. He thought even the devil could be used ultimately in service of the good, but you could use this esoteric language to control the spirits and to not manipulate them for your own selfish purposes, but for the benefit, but to use them for the benefit of the larger world. So very interesting mystic there, one of my favorite mystics. But he talks about an Enochian language that was passed down that he has access to in his writings.
So where did he get access from?
He's, he would
the mystery
say
schools of Rome.
Yeah, he would say mystery schools, and basically his own. Cornelius Agrippa, and I believe him on this. I think he was very, very, very in tune to the spiritual world.
Yeah, no, so I know for sure Rome at some points they had the secret knowledge. When it was Alexander the Great, as he was going about these places, he was collecting these ancient knowledges. He was storing them in the Library of Alexandria, and when the Library of Alexandria burned down, we lost one of the major connections.
Yeah, that's one of the great tragedies. I think that, and the Council of Nicaea, and then the destruction of the Alexandrian Library, where I think, in my view, two great tragedies of human civilization.
Yeah, we lost like 1,000 IQ points that day of Library of Alexandria. So Rome was taking over a lot of the world. Now, you mentioned earlier, the Council of Nicaea totally destroyed our ancient history's esoteric and mystic knowledge from the past. It took it out of the Bible, took it out of normal society.
Yeah.
Before then, we had this connection to piezoelectric energy. I believe that even Bigfoot and UFOs have an understanding of, like,
yes,
there's there's piezoelectric properties, and cats can see the electricity and the piezoelectric energy on the earth. We have no understanding of it today. Well, I do, you do a little bit, but like most of society doesn't.
Most people do not. Yeah.
And these crystals, I've had this thought. For me, I think that there's a way to contact these Bigfoot and UFOs through manipulating crystals and manipulating different glass-like structures and being able to see into the different dimensions. That's on my own little theory.
I think I haven't done that much with crystals. I have colleagues. I even have a relative who's really into crystals. But I wonder, from what they've told me, there's some really interesting stuff you can do with them. And I'd be curious to explore that in the future.
So to think about how our current technology is interacting with these other dimensions, do you think that right now we're using things like Dicenian glass, or we're using portals, stargates to interact with these beings, or are they like off limits to us? Would they still be living in their own little realm? To just for an instance, like to clarify, like there is proof that our ancient esoteric leaders were interacting with entities that we currently see today. Like, for instance, Aleister Crowley and his satanic ass was interacting with this entity called Lamb. Right now, people are still are seeing this type of entity.
He looks like a UFO. He looks like an alien.
Take it 50 years later, and Roswell and this is happening in this same areas where they're over here doing Trinity test bombs and ritual sex magic in the desert with Parsons and all of these guys. They're summoning some type of demonic rituals, and I think that there's a battle. I don't know how far we are accepted into these other entities like Bigfoot and aliens, the government is getting craft. The government is getting craft, and they're even admitting over in CERN, hey, like we're interacting with entities. The natives and other cultures say that, like, the government is really doing some disturbing ritual work, out in military bases to summon things, to create hybrid like entities, to send these UFOs to abduct people. This for instance, like experiencers in UFO fields, they talk about when they're abducted into these craft, they see admirals, they see aliens, these tall gray aliens that Aleister Crowley was drawing out 100 years ago. And it's reference to, like, in ancient past, we would look at them as like these shapeshifters. Where do you stand? Like, how far do you think it is a way for us to understand on the common level? Like, we understand this, but society won't, right? Society doesn't understand this. It's only a few years away, though, right? Or what's your opinion on all this?
I think we've been interacting with these entities for a very long time, like I said earlier, and it's interesting because people who have worked in the field, Lockheed Martin, etc., who've worked in these kind of government with these government facilities, with these government contracts, they have said, that we have interacted, with Stargate technology. We've used Stargate technology, UFO technology. We've what's the word I'm looking for? Retro. Blanking on the word. But we've interacted with this technology for a very, very long time. And it's interesting because people will say that, one of the reasons for the Iraq War, we call, officially it was the War on Terror because of the aftermath of 9/11. But one of the other reasons for the war was to get our hands on these stargates. And I saw a fascinating picture one time where they basically raided the photographs from when they raided Saddam Hussein's house or his palace. I should say it wasn't a freaking house; it was a palace. It was absolutely huge. And someone had a picture. I don't know what happened. I saw it online where there was basically they had found a Stargate, and and they were saying one of the reasons for the invasion was to get their hands on the Stargate so that they could travel. So Stargate, there's a TV show. It's actually Stargate. The movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. But it's like many movies. There's kind of a historical. There's a historical origin to it, which is that these objects appeared to exist in the Middle East, and you could travel from basically one galaxy to another with these stargates. So people have talked about this quite a bit. Something I need to do more research on. But it seems like we have access to this technology, and I think what's going on here, going back to kind of Edgar Casey's dynamic between the Sons of Light and the Sons of Darkness, we do have good aliens. We have aliens and UFOs who are trying to help humanity. And I think just like with the Council of Nicaea, a lot of stuff has been circumvented by the elites, by the powers that be, to try and amass as much power and authority as they can. So there's a battle going on, and that's why you see the contradiction. That's why you see, this weird, twisted crap, this basically satanic, demonic crap that the elites do, versus, the messages that people are receiving from Ashtar, from Abraham, from Galactic Federation, which are trying to lead humanity in a more positive direction. So I think there's a spiritual battle literally going on there, as the Apostle Paul would say in his writings.
I've heard of Ashtar quite a bit, and I see the Twitter posts that Ashtar Command and different things.
Yeah.
Who is he?
Ashtar is one of the commanders of the Galactic Federation. So Ashtar has been speaking through people for years, basically telling humanity to get it together. There's too much fighting, there's too much hatred, there's too much prejudice. Get it together and be better. And we're here. The Galactic Federation is here to help you to be better. So, but been around for many decades, since the start of the UFO phenomenon in the 50s and 60s. Not just Ashtar, but we have other visits. So people visited UFO personalities such as George Adamski and others. They were being visited by aliens who were telling them basically the same things that Ashtar was telling them. There's too much division. There's too much hatred. We need to come together. We need to be more positive. And we need a positive direction for humanity to go in.
Is this Ashtar, like, would he be Palladian?
Yes.
Throughout most of my life, and I've told my friends this, whenever I go out into the backyard or like out into the night sky and I look up, I see the Pleiades, Seven Sisters. It's the first star system that I've always looked at. And when I was younger, I had this extraterrestrial encounter with like 3 humanoid-like angelic beings, and it seemed very, from what I know, Palladian, very, very Palladian. Like they seemed like high elves in a sense, like very, very angelic.
They're very, yes. So the Galactic Federation. And I'm actually working on a book where I make a connection to this. I believe the Galactic Federation has been talking to us, like I said, for thousands of years. And in ancient times, the Galactic Federation was basically identified with the angels, with the Malachim, the Agalos that are mentioned in the Bible.
Is this the 7 sages?
Could be.
People talk about this ancient 7 sages, and we do have spiritual helpers that are constantly giving us messages, that are tapping into the Akashic or the ether. Mm-hmm. Would you say that this is our true divine nature? Like, I think we were born with God-given abilities. I say this all the time, and it's like our psychic nature, our telepathic nature, our intuitional deja vu, our visions, these different type of very divine and spiritual abilities from our pineal gland. These things, they're angelic, highly angelic. We're like very, very benevolent in the divine protection realm where
Mhm.
we can heal. I mean, like if for instance, like I've been able to stay away from certain events and things because like in my head I was getting the message like, yo, you should leave now.
Yeah,
Like don't go there. God's helping me out in certain ways. I'm
yeah,
getting
I've had those
deja vu in
experiences
certain
too.
ways.
I've had those experiences too. So
Do you
I'll
think that these are divine abilities, like from God, and that so like
yes,
in
absolutely.
the book of Daniel, and these other biblical stories, they have prophecy, they have visions, they were able to
Mhm.
tap into these things.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Daniel is, he's said to have the spirit of the gods. Not just Daniel, but a bunch of
Joseph,
figures in the Old Testament. Joseph, yep, exactly. Joseph,
my name is Joseph Daniel.
yeah, yeah. Very, very good name. Best of both worlds, yes. So, but yeah, they're able to tap into this. And I think, this is something that we inherited from God, from the higher beings that ultimately were responsible for creating us. And I think that in ancient times we were much more aware of this kind of psychic ability, of these abilities to see where something was right, where something was wrong, where something needed to be avoided. And with kind of again with the emphasis on materialism and the rise of technology, where things can be done for you rather than you doing them yourself, I think we had lost this ability, and I think slowly it's starting to come back.
Th- this would be the Adamic abilities, right? So if we're looking
Yeah,
at this in if we're looking at this in the ancient way, like I guess we could see how these other fallen angels and these Nephilim type of lineages, they might have these weird shape-shifting abilities, these weird blood sucking, leeching, but wanting, desiring. See, like I really subscribe since we were talking about these cryptids and entities, and we're basing it on biblical and historical and religious understandings. These entities that we see all across the world, these birdmen, these dogmen type of things, all these Egyptian type of lores, the Greek type of lores, I believe that they all have their own little abilities, they all had their own little divine abilities God gave them, and that kind of passed down through the arts, through the orders, the
yeah,
rituals, all the different knowledges, but even us and the DNA ability where um all across the world, when we look at the different races, I think that every single race has their own little unique ability, and that it was passed down through the generations from above and the entities above. Where, like, you
yeah.
know, th-
Well, it's
I got into some videos recently where the monks and these Shaolin monks and these ancient Chinese, like Tibetan orders, whatever, Order of the Dragon in different places. These guys they're able to start fire. They're able to like start
yeah,
electricity.
they had a lot of really cool esoteric stuff they could do. Yeah.
Yeah. H- How far do you think our abilities go?
You know, I don't know. We we
So like
know
I've
that
heard
we
a podcast
only
episode where it's speculated that we have like 100 abilities.
yeah, well, this goes back to this kind of ties into human biology because as you know, we use a very small portion of our brains. And I think a part of that is that we've been conditioned to use a very small portion of our brains, and we've kind of been locked out of what we could do if we used, more of our brain. So imagine if we use 90% of our brain, what type of things we could do. We could probably just, fashion things out of thin air. But I think we've been conditioned to not do that, because, like I said, there's so much of a focus on materiality. So looking outside of your, looking apart from yourself, looking to like an institution, whether that be the church, the government, or something else, looking to technology to really provide for what you can do yourself. So we've become lazy as human beings, and we're not using our mental facilities, our mental abilities to the capacity that we could.
Which is probably why we can't be interacting with Bigfoots and aliens just like so openly because, well, how if we're not even at our highest form, if we're not even using our abilities, why would they want to interact with us
Yeah,
at our
yeah,
lowest and dimmest? Um, is it what is this Ashtar's perception on Earth? From what I've heard, there's been some extraterrestrial encounters, alien encounters. They're like humanity's not ready.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that was. I think that if you look at the messages channeled by the Galactic Federation, I think for many years it would have said humanity's not ready. We can talk to individuals, but humanity as a whole is not ready. Humanity is too divisive, and I think this really took effect. It's not ironic that Ashtar and UFOs start to appear after the atomic age, the modern atomic age. Because I think we've had atomic weapons. The Atlanteans blew themselves the hell up hundreds of thousands of years ago. But the modern atomic age in 1945 is really kind of the birth of UFOs, of the modern UFO phenomenon. Excuse me, the modern UFO phenomenon, and we see at that time, Ashtar and all these beings channeling messages and saying, you guys really aren't ready for what we can give you until you guys get things together, until you're more peaceful, until you're not trying to blow each other up. We can't really bring you into the fullness of your enlightenment.
And I do think there's a thin barrier, like between what's accepted as truth for us. Like, so if we're not living up to truth, we're not living up to shit. Like
Yeah.
if we're living in all these little pockets of fake reality, that human or that Hollywood and the mainstream and all of this is giving us, we're living in nothing. We're not in touch with any sort of the true frequencies, these true entities. And currently, man, I think right now this is a tough time for humanity where it's not just humans, it's not just good spirits. I think right now there's an inbound of dark spirits.
Yeah,
From what I've heard with this particle collider, they're like bringing in spirits. Um, there's some crazy occult esoteric conspiracy how they're like through music they're summoning demons into people, and different things like this. And so when we look around in society, it almost seems like some of society is very alienish, demonic, or possessed, and it's not them behind that. It's what UFO experiencers would like to call some of these people are they're skin suits. Skin suits for this entity, these demons, succubuses and incubuses is the ancient term where these entities are able to lock on.
And you've got to be really careful, in some ways to what you listen to, because that can be a channel for something, coming in. I used to tell, I've been a high school teacher for many years, and I would tell my students, some of that, some of the music you're listening to is demonic. And I'm not talking about I love heavy metal. So I'm not talking about that, but some of the themes, whatever genre of music, some of these themes are dark and satanic, and they're ways to channel demonic spirits into you. So you have to be careful about what you're listening to. So yeah,
if there's an Enochian language, there's a reverse on the dark side, right?
Yep.
What's it called? I don't know.
I
But
don't
like,
know either.
but I can see that between these elite occultists and their Hollywood music videos, there's something that they're like passing through.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
It's a fight. And hey, so next segment, I want to go ahead and touch on actual historical dates and just any type of like references to historical times of giants and Bigfoot for all my viewers. That way we can like just touch down and actual true, things.
Yeah.
But for now, let's go ahead and take a quick break. I'm gonna run some videos. So I'll run maybe. Let me see what I can do, guys. All right, I'll just probably run another one. Where is it? Jesus, every time. Please, guys, if you could like, subscribe, and share. What we got is good stuff. Good stuff.
Meditating, analyzing everything I see, so I see new horizons. Took the acid, feeling blasted in my brain, so I've been sitting up inside it, thinking about the present and the future. I'm improving cause I am a trooper, never getting caught up in the loop. Got up out it cause I found the truth. Woke up to a beauty of the day, yeah, the sun is shining, so I'm finna stay. Sitting, soaking up all of the rays, till I feel it surging through my brain like some booger sugar. Did a lot of cane, experimented with it, couldn't name all the times I did it, feeling like a fade. Yeah, I'm really glad that I let it go, cause I gotta be prepped for the time when the plane ride is a new norm. So I know I'm gonna stay high, blaze on the ganja, feeling like I make my music go to another level while I take off. I can't ever stop this, fell in love with it, fit like a glove, so I'm never ever done with it. So now I'm about to rip another beat, ayy. One day I'll make $1 million in a week, yeah, shooting for the top spot. Feel like I'm a hot shot, like I really got a chance with it. I will not flop, somebody gonna make it dance when I pop off. Gonna have all the bitches taking all the tops off. I've been feeling like I'm really gonna kill it for the rest of my life, so I've been staying focused. In my soul, I've been feeling like $1 million, so I know that everything is really getting closer. Yeah, no posers, only been hanging with the ones I've chosen. Only all the people that are living in the right way, cause they spending every day growing. Yeah, no whole shit coming in my life and then leaving in a moment. That's the shit I'll never let into my life again, cause lately I've been feeling like I'm golden. Never showboat, I just showcase on my music that I made this far. Always knew that I could be the one that would get this far. Now I'm right here looking in my mirror, trying to figure out if there's any more fear, cause I'm getting rid of it all, yeah. Yeah, I'm getting rid of it all. Meditating, analyzing everything I see, so I see new horizons. Took the acid, feeling blasted in my brain, so I've been sitting up inside it, thinking about the present and the future. I'm improving cause I am a trooper, never getting caught.
Turn play.
Meditating, analyzing everything I see, so I see new horizons. Took the acid, feeling blasted in my brain, so I've been sitting up inside it, thinking about the present and the future. I'm improving cause I am a trooper, never getting caught up in the loop. Got up out it cause I found the truth. Woke up to a beauty of the day, yeah, the sun is shining, so I'm finna stay. Sitting, soaking up all of the rays, till I feel it surging through my brain like some booger sugar. Did a lot of cane, experimented with it, couldn't name all the times I did it, feeling like a fade. Yeah, I'm really glad that I let it go, cause I gotta be prepped for the time when the plane ride is a new norm. So I know I'm gonna stay high, blaze on the ganja, feeling like I make my music go to another level while I take off. I can't ever stop this, fell in love with it, fit like a glove, so I'm never ever done with it. So now I'm about to rip another beat, ayy. One day I'll make $1 million in a week, yeah, shooting for the top spot. Feel like I'm a hot shot, like I really got a chance with it. I will not flop, somebody gonna make it dance when I pop off. Gonna have all the bitches taking all the tops off. I've been feeling like I'm really gonna kill it for the rest of my life, so I've been staying focused. In my soul, I've been feeling like $1 million, so I know that everything is really getting closer. Yeah, no posers, only been hanging with the ones I've chosen. Only all the people that are living in the right way, cause they spending every day growing. Yeah, no whole shit coming in my life and then leaving in a moment. That's the shit I'll never let into my life again, cause lately I've been feeling like I'm golden. Never showboat, I just showcase on my music that I made this far. Always knew that I could be the one that would get this far. Now I'm right here looking in my mirror, trying to figure out if there's any more fear, cause I'm getting rid of it all, yeah. Yeah, I'm getting rid of it all. Meditating, analyzing everything I see, so I see new horizons. Took the acid, feeling blasted in my brain, so I've been sitting up inside it, thinking about the present and the future. I'm improving cause I am a trooper, never getting caught.
You know, I'm back. We're back. So those songs are from this local buddy of mine, or like my buddy's buddy, local buddy. It's a weird thing, but those are pretty cool songs. I need to change them up, get some new stuff. What I do also need is some illustrators. So people out there who actually want to like create some cool stuff. I'm thinking if anybody wants to create like some visual art, whether that be through Adobe or whatever you use, DM me definitely. Like I just put together some slideshows all on my own, so enough of that, man. I'm thinking it's a new year. Everything that it's going on in my life right now is upgrading, and with that, I want to get some upgraded illustrations, man. Please, guys, help me out here.
I have no artistic talent. I can't help you. I'm sorry.
You, but everybody out there listening in, send your artist buddies who are making comics my way. I'll pay them. Hey, thank you guys for being here. We're back. Adam, Bigfoot is near. Bigfoot is here. I tell everybody in my local area, because in my area here in Washington State, a lot of people have Bigfoot symbols and emblems. Like Bigfoot is truly here.
Well, Washington State is the state with the most Bigfoot sightings, I believe, even more so than California.
From what I've heard, though, is Bigfoot is dimming. Like there isn't a whole bunch of sightings as there used to be. There isn't a population like it used to be. Or what do you think?
I haven't heard. I haven't heard that, but that could be.
We push them more in. And
I think by trying to look for them all the time, we've kind of drawn them more away.
Right. Or even as we hunted them, like just for an instance on this hunting part, there's a quick reference. Let's talk about all the historical references. In 1975, the United States Army Engineer Corps published the Washington Environmental Atlas, a comprehensive environmental survey that included a dedicated entry for Bigfoot. So the military has studied Bigfoot, and it's on the tracks of where they really are. I'm going to show you the map. I show everybody. Where's the map? I just had it up here. Where is it? Here. Show more replies. Right here. So, as he's saying, a lot of Bigfoot sightings, but the military has a track on it. Do you think we're going to war with these things? Or do you think, what do you think?
It wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, a lot of times Bigfoot is a hostile creature. I know we talked earlier about, Native Americans. They have a different relationship, I think, with Bigfoot. But in a lot of the stories that you look at, even from, talking about timelines, the 1800s, the 19th century, into the 20th century, Bigfoot does some messed up stuff. Like I said, he steals stuff. Sometimes he even attacks people. Nick Redfern in his book, he has like a Bigfoot Bible basically, and it's basically encyclopedia of Bigfoot. And he gives a lot of stories where police have had shootouts with Bigfoot. So it would not be surprising to me. I haven't heard of official government encounters with Bigfoot, violent encounters with Bigfoot, but there certainly have been many with civilians. So the origin for the Legend of Boggy, if you've seen that movie, that started with a shootout in Arkansas between a family and Bigfoot. And there have been other cases of that I mentioned before, the shootout between police and Bigfoot as well.
But before we talk about this shoot, I'd like for you to talk about it. There is the reference of the Bigfoot War in 1855. The Choctaw Nation. Um, they they were having issues with this Bigfoot. And Oklahoma in 1855.
Yep.
They
And all
band
these
together the
predate modern
Choctaw.
Bigfoot sightings. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the Choctaw tribe and the local Oklahoma homesteaders went to war with these local Bigfoot, these hairy men.
Mhm.
They were told that these Bigfoots were stealing the women and doing their way, whatever. Well, they had enough of it, and they bound together and they pushed them back into the mountains. They pushed them into
Yeah.
caves.
Yeah.
Native Americans talk about that with giants, but it's mentioned with Bigfoot too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
as what is this tale? I mean, what is you're mentioning?
Well, I think, I think it shows that in a lot of cases, unfortunately, we want to think of Bigfoot as this cuddly, like Chewbacca, Harry, and the Henderson's creature, but he does have a propensity for violence, not being such a nice creature. So it wouldn't surprise me. Again, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the government had hostile encounters with Bigfoot. And I think that if there is a type of Bigfoot war going on, we've probably, Bigfoot, like I said, doesn't seem to have the best of cognitive abilities. He can't match our own cognitive abilities as human beings. So, if there is a war going on, then we're probably winning it, and we're probably pushing him, going back to that math that you had, we're probably pushing him further and further into obscurity.
Wouldn't those be the Bigfoots that we're seeing are the Bigfoots that are being like outcasted or maybe not intelligent enough to stick with the tribes and that? Because if we're looking at these different Bigfoot culture, Bigfoot tribes,
Yeah.
we see, as we mentioned earlier, all these different species. The red haired, the dark haired. They have like even probably I'm just imagining elongated skull type Bigfoots. They have smaller skull Bigfoots. They have more intelligent type Bigfoots. Even even small, hairy, humanoid type of things like Yoda in a sense. Star Wars and George Lucas, in my feel, he was onto something. He was
Yeah.
mentioning something.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
mentioned Battlestar Galactica, but I know for a fact, like the Star Trek creator, was
Gene
into some
Roddenberry.
very high military esoteric knowledge, and he was
Yeah, well, he was
mentioning
Gene
things.
Roddenberry was ex-military. He was also responsible for basically the creation of the LAPD. So there's a show that he did with called The Lieutenant. But basically, what becomes the modern LAPD is largely influenced by Gene Roddenberry. And I always tell people this because they'll say, "Oh, the Federation is," when Star Trek seems like such a lovey-dovey organization. I'm like, no, it's actually more. It's more designed like as a police department. If you look at what the Federation is, it's a very rigid, structured, well organized, well disciplined police department. So I say all that not to get too much off a tangent. I say all that to say that I think Roddenberry and George Lucas were definitely onto a lot of things.
They were in bed with the military industrial complex in a
Yeah.
sense, and they were giving out some type of disclosure. We know Steven Spielberg does.
Well,
George
Spielberg
Lucas,
has that
though,
movie coming up, Disclosure.
yeah,
Disclosure
it's
Day,
called
yeah.
Disclosure Day. But to think about, no, in realistic sense, I fully think that there are some of these other species of Bigfoot that are probably highly intelligent, and because there are the stories of these Bigfoots knowing how to go to these portals and activate these portals. They can warp through little dimensional rifts. Some of these Bigfoots, they have technologies on them, and some of these.
Well, people have always made a connection between UFOs and the Bigfoots. That's something I should probably research, and I'd like to research some more. So I actually have a T-shirt with both Sasquatch and a UFO on it, walking through the forest. So there's people have made that connection. And I think that within the larger category of cryptic and mysterious creatures, that connection can certainly be made. Even when I was at Point Pleasant in West Virginia, at the Mothman Museum, they also had a bunch of merchandise and a bunch of information on Bigfoot. So it seems like, there does seem to be a relationship between these different cryptoids, these different creatures.
Right. The tribal shamans, how would they talk about these Bigfoot? Like, in a sense, the same things as the natives, where some of these are helpers, right? And these tribal shamans know about gateways and portals.
Yeah. So the star people travel in gateways and portals, and the shamans travel sometimes with them.
Right. So they're pulling back knowledge, and they're able to give us in any way they can. These guys are intelligent. They're these entities, these little people. I don't think that calling these things fairies and imps and all the dwarves and everything, like some of these English terms kind of bastardize it in a sense.
Yeah.
Where do you think, like, it was just 100 years ago that we lost this? 200 years ago? Because it was 200, 300 years ago, there was still the recollection of giants and dragons.
And even fairies, even in the early 20th century, children would talk about them. I think it definitely, with the Industrial Revolution, I would say, if I had to put a time period on it, speaking of dates, the Industrial Revolution and just the rise of technology, when we started having other things do things for us, we lost, and when we became such a secular society where talking about God or gods or spirituality became taboo, I think we lost a lot of our innate abilities.
And that was just early in the 1900s with the Rockefeller complex, and how they want to take away ether and everything. Right around that time, it's very interesting. 1924 and all these areas of Bigfoot lore. So in 1924, there is the Bigfoot kidnapping of Osman, as you had said, the Swedish Canadian prospector near British Columbia.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into the story?
Yeah, there's not. I mean,
Or
basically,
what do you think happened during those days?
I think he saw a whole Bigfoot coming. So we talked earlier about, how certain places, not just in North America, but around the globe, are just hotbeds for esoteric activity, cryptic activity, where the cryptids dwell to kind of get away from humanity. And I think he found one of those places, and Bigfoot, as the account says, telepathically communicated with him about where this region was, where he could see these multiple Bigfoots. So there seemed to be a whole group of Bigfoots, a whole tribe of Bigfoots, all concentrated in this area that nobody had ever been to before.
Is there more to it? Like, there's gold here, archaeology here.
It's funny because one of the questions, Joe, I always had is, did anybody else ever explore this region again? Did they come back to it? They try to find these Bigfoots? And I can't get clear information from that. Maybe I could ask someone like Nick Redfern or something about that. But it seems to me that there was more to explore there, but that just didn't happen.
You know what's trippy? I'm finding, like, right now with this whole park rangers, around the nation being pretty much out of a job, and our national parks, a lot of them now, some of these campsites are off limits. Some of these national parks, it's very hard to get to. It's federal land, and some of these it's off limits.
The Grand Canyon, for years, people have said that in the Grand Canyon, talking about ancient technology, there are cities and remnants of cities and a bunch of people have found Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon. They found Phoenician artifacts in the Grand Canyon. There are supposedly freaking like buildings built into the Grand Canyon that are thousands and thousands of years old, but look like, contemporary buildings that you see in New York City or something like that. But the civilians are not given access to go to those places in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening like currently right now. The Bigfoot. So what I mentioned earlier, there's Bigfoot sightings all across Washington right now. There's Bigfoot, like an uptick in Washington and Ohio, different places around the nation. And there's earthquakes in these locations. It is getting very strange that we're not allowed over there. If these entities are coming out, we're purposely being hidden away from them.
Yeah.
Do you think that even just more recently it's becoming with UFOs, how this UFO disclosure is our way of knowing that this is all real, and to see Bigfoot at the bottom of it? Like, we're out in the forest, we see Bigfoot at the bottom, but everybody else is seeing UFOs everywhere, right?
Yeah.
These UFOs and Bigfoot connections, it's very important, right? That they're like, are they best friends? Are they like warriors types? Like, I'm looking at a 1973 Pennsylvania, the flap. This is the most famous cluster. Over several months, the Fayetteville County area experienced a wave of reports of glowing orbs, dish-shaped UFOs.
Yeah.
Large hairy
I think
creatures.
that I think the connection there, if you're Bigfoot, and if you're a UFO or alien entity that doesn't really think that humanity is ready for the esoteric knowledge that you want to give it, you're going to try and find the remotest, most unexplored areas to hang out in. So just for that reason, I think that Bigfoot and the UFOs would probably literally share some common ground in wanting to in going to these obscure places. And that's probably why, because when you look in the Midwest, so West Virginia, for example, and Ohio, those are hotbeds for UFO activity as well. I mean, we have the Mothman. John Keel thought that the Mothman was an interdimensional entity. So I think that where the UFOs are hanging out is probably where Bigfoot's hanging out too, because they're remote places that are far removed from humanity.
Has Mothman ever been reported with any of these entities?
That's an excellent question. Mothman and Bigfoot have been reported. I know for a fact they've been reported in the same area, but whether they've actually been both together, I'm not sure. It's funny you mentioned that, Joe, because there's a book series where the Mothman versus different creatures, and then one of the books is called Mothman versus Bigfoot.
That'd be funny. That'd be funny to like see a comic live action.
Yeah.
Of it. All right, so I'm just thinking about the connection to these entities and crafts, right? Because if we're looking at another side, Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, this location is known for its phenomena. The rumors go that in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, as the settlers were coming through, they weren't really allowed in the native lands, and the natives were getting pissed off, and the natives were like, we're gonna curse you and curse this land if you try to like bite over, something along those lines. I forgot exactly how the tale goes, right? These native shamans create a curse of spirits, of skinwalkers, of something. And ever since then, there's been spiritual attacks. There's been weird stuff happening. There's radiation. There's UFOs. What do you think that connection is?
Well, I think again, UFOs aren't. We think of UFOs as completely like just high tech sci-fi things, but there is, and I think we've been talking about this over the course of the past couple of hours. There's a spiritual connection to them, and the spiritual connection can be positive, as I think with Ashtar Command, for example, or it can be negative and demonic and satanic. And I think that you have stories of both in the UFO lore.
These craft have been known to kind of be tied into our biology, where in some essence it's biological. These craft are biological.
Yeah.
But why would it be at Skinwalker Ranch where shaman, let's just say these shamans of a white order, of a nice order, like a white magic type of order is what I mean.
Yeah.
They were putting like protection magic, and now there's there's these craft that are interacting with these spirits. Do you think that Bigfoot and aliens or UFO and these UFOs can see spirits and ghosts? And
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if we're talking about, so Bigfoot's kind of I've argued in my book, in my writings, that he's kind of a cursed creature, that he does have more in at least in my view, with kind of the lower realms than with the realm of light. I think UFOs, definitely, again, UFOs, there's a spiritual aspect to them. So going again to the Nephilim, I mentioned before that the term Nephilim means the fallen ones. Ancient, and we talked about fallen angels there. I think there's a double entendre going on there, meaning that in ancient astronaut theory, the Nephilim were often interpreted as falling UFOs from the sky. So sky beings that fell to the earth. I think that both meanings are in play. So these are spiritual beings who fell from God's grace, but they're also, they can be, not all UFOs. I'm not, like I said, not all UFOs are demonic or fallen, but they can have that. But some UFOs are.
How could they? I mean, the demonic nature, would that be the Nazis building these
Yes.
bells?
Yeah, so I think the Nazis tapped into, clearly they tapped into something that was very, very dark spiritually. But the Nazis were using, they had this advanced alien technology, and, it gave, I don't think people realize how close, they came to winning it all. Even towards the end of the war, they were trying to tap into this. They were trying to, gosh, I'm blanking on the word again. Reverse engineer this alien technology for their own benefit up until the very, very end of the war. They tapped into something. They tapped into something very, very dark.
So these UFO crafts, some, as we mentioned earlier, some of them have hieroglyphs, and you had mentioned this ancient Hebrew symbol. What Hebrew
Even the
symbol?
Glock, the
Hold on,
Glock.
is this a Hebrew symbol that people are referencing as the Raelian?
Some people have, yes.
Whoa. Okay, then this is tying into the genetic program, the human hybrid program, that like in extraterrestrial lore, like of UFO abductees and people, like this is like a genetic hybridization program that these grays and that these demonic beings
I think that goes to the dark aspect of UFOs. So
and on the light aspect, where Bigfoot and aliens are, I've heard like they're trying to contact some of us who actually have these more divine abilities, the divine spirits, these we're the children of light, and both sides are trying to figure out which of us in the human population, normal population, is able to activate these stargates.
yeah.
So
it's very interesting.
So
I don't know if they need help from us activating the stargates, but
well, no, because these things are biological, right? Not every human can activate these crafts, just like not every human can activate their DNA. These portals that the shamans and these ancient people, these they can go to these walls and they can figure out where and how and what chants and what mantras, but also by DNA and resonance and frequency. That's how.
Yeah.
And also from if we're looking at like the biblical standpoint, the Bible mentions that there's going to be like a whole wave of like great people being born, right? Like
Yes.
so we're this is why we're like being interacted with, and not everybody's able to receive the message.
Well, it's interesting. So there's been an uptick in recent years of, people who we would consider on the spectrum neurodivergent. And I think that, people are asking, people are wondering why this is. I think that we're seeing this uptick because many neurodivergent persons are more in touch spiritually with the UFOs, with these entities that will bring us towards enlightenment. So I think that, even though there's an ostracization in mainstream society against people who are neurodivergent, I think that there is a connection there between kind of what they're spiritually aligned with and the next stage of basically our development as human beings,
Right, and into this like humanoid spiritist, or this what I forgot what they call it. They call the exact name of the future reference. But as Graham Hancock says, we're a species of amnesia, right? So we're in a body with eyes and a spirit that is much greater than we're comprehending. It's like we're a giant computer in a small box that we're not able like we're an iPhone in a 1950s computer, and it's just like we're too much, and um the reason that we're too much is because we've been limited over the last 100 years. We've been taken away from that evolution where our ancient ancestors, our native ancestors knew about, hey, there's going to be a spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
And the esoteric and the ancient orders knew that too. They would like to say that they're trying to bring about the fucking Antichrist and bullshit, but they also knew that there was going to be a wave of intelligent and brilliant souls that were being born into this earth.
Exactly. And I think that's exactly what's happening right now. Yeah.
And to think to look back into how you're mentioning this Iraq war, they were trying to get a Stargate. I've also seen how this this project, this looking glass technology, this ancient technology that they're able to like tap in and see the future and try to see timelines of people. It's
remote viewing. They try to do that. Yeah.
Well, those are the psychics, but there was an ancient technology that supposedly that they also found that was like a time machine that they were able to look into the the future. Looking glass technology. Let me see if I can pull it up for you. But we're being manipulated. Let me see. I'm trying to get this picture. So where is it? Yeah. Totally blanked on what I was saying right there. Would you want to continue with what I was saying?
Oh yeah. No, you're basically I definitely agree. I think that we are being manipulated, and someone has a vested interest in us not reaching our full potential. and I can say, who that person is, that person is. I think the elites, are the ones who are deliberately stopping us from reaching our full potential. But who are they working for? And I think that there's somebody, at the end of the tunnel, who is ultimately responsible.
Yesterday
So
and
this is
today
that
is the
Project Looking
very
Glass.
first public unveiling in a public
This is
presentation.
David Wilcock
of
was
Project
showing this.
Looking
Rest in
Glass.
peace.
The human
Rest
being
in
is
peace.
about this tall. This is built in underground bases. It is colossal in size. And what happens is when you fire this thing up, these rings start going in all different directions. It shields off the barrel of water inside, which is just like your pineal gland. The water inside flips over into time-space, which then captures argon gas, captures visual images, and this is what it looks like. It becomes huge, glowing, all the way out to these posts, which are used as stabilizers for the energy field. Now, it doesn't start out with an image of the Earth. That's just there as a placeholder, although you could see the whole Earth like that if you wanted to. That's not usually what happens. Well, contact, right? We have been given the technology right in front of our faces in the movies. They just don't tell you what it's for. In what?
In the movie, they have that technology being used.
Yep. I remember.
And this
Contact.
technology is supposedly this ancient technology that's to match with what you were saying. So all throughout ancient past, there's the Stargate technology. There's this. There was an ancient one that was supposedly pulled. We have the pyramids that have been recorded as not just healers but also Stargates.
Yeah.
Stonehenge was it seemed like an electromagnetic amplifier, so you get in there and all your
I think Stonehenge was created by the same giants who made the Native American, who were responsible for the type of spirituality that we get the Native American mound. So I think there's a direct connection. But all those places are full, high energy, high frequency places.
and so our ancestors, our spiritual and angels, God, I would imagine these Bigfoot and good helpers, these Pleiadians, this is what they're here for. They're trying to bring us back to these ancient sites, and actually that is the mission. People like me and you and everyone who's on these paths, we are uncovering these sites, these technologies, these ways of living that are beneficial to society, the environment, the rhythm of the earth, to provide sustainable living, longer life force, brighter minds, stronger bodies. And the Illuminati or whoever the fuck they want to be, satanic forces, they can try to dim us down as much as they want, but we're here on a mission, and the mission is to revive these ancient technologies. And I think that's why we're being led to these places, these archaeologists, some places like over there in Egypt, to uncover these pyramids. It was like by a grace of fortune that these places were even uncovered and unburied. A lot of people wanted to give up. They didn't want to fund any of these destinations, these journeys. And then some of the world's greatest mysteries. And this is what happens when we're on that Akashic and ethereal realm, when we're in tune, as Edgar Casey, would want to say, like we're tapping into the Akashic. So when we're in tune on a vibrancy level, a frequency level, what I know is that we're receiving all these electromagnetic energies, we're seeing all these light patterns, but not just that, we're getting information every single second that our brain is and spirit is processing. And when we're shut down and when we're filled with all that negativity and false imagery and false energy portals and false energy bubbles, as I said earlier, we're not even able to receive all of these good frequencies of messages around and to look at our higher sense, the being in tune with our pineal gland factor and being able to receive messages from Ashtar or Pleiadians or angels or God above, Jesus, maybe Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, however you subscribe to it. There are light entities above. They can only talk to you when we're in those frequencies and tunes. And over the last 100 years, these Rockefeller foundations have been able to like go to war with it. But
well, you mentioned Rockefeller. Rockefeller's the guy who started the 9 to 5. If you're if you're busting your ass off on a 9 to 5 job, you don't have time to really, explore your higher frequencies. So I think there was a deliberate effort there to take us away from our spiritual heritage.
Yeah, right. And it's going to be in the next 25 years that this LiDAR is going to uncover some of our greatest and most powerful discoveries ever. We're going to start being in tune with a life force that is going to heal us again. I know for instance, the pyramid, what is it, like in Bolivia or Bosnia with Sam Osmanagic,
in Bosnia,
that pyramid provides healing. And when we look at the Temple of Malta, that provides healing. The Sound Temple of Malta, these places provide healing, and they're only being uncovered now. And so
because we thought the pyramid in Bosnia was just a freaking mountain, it's not.
All that old baggage of sinful, dark industrial life, it's all going away, guys. There's a new revolution, new renaissance, and we touched on it earlier, how in the 1500s. So I have this book, this is a cool book. It's not even promoting it. I'm not sponsored with that by this at all. But this book right here, it's called Proof: How the World Became Geometrical by Amir Alexander. Very fascinating book, and in it, I'm learning how in the Renaissance they were bringing back this ancient knowledge that it wanted to be put away. Leonardo da Vinci was bringing this back. Michelangelo, they were all bringing these ideas back, while the Vatican and the church and these Pharisees and these people, whatever people, I guess I shouldn't call them demons, but like maybe they should, but I don't know, whatever, they're people. They were making the wrong decisions and taking away our ether and everything, but we're bringing it back, guys. We're bringing it back. Is there any references to Bigfoot or giants at these sites or locations, or you mentioned that in some of these places, the giants were known to create some of these sites?
Yeah, I mean, we have in the Native American mounds, we actually have skeletal remains of giants in them. People took photographs. These were in newspapers. It was very prominent. Excuse me. It was very prominent in late 19th century. So there were giant skeletal remains in the mounds themselves, the Native American mounds themselves. So, and the mounds, one thing I like to tell people is that not all mounds are created equal. Some of the mounds were created in imitation of earlier mounds. So you have mounds from the earlier mounds that may have been much more elaborate than the mounds that came later, which were imitations of them. So I think, the giants frequented these mounds. They were clearly religious. I've argued that they were temple sites for giant civilizations that lived here in North America. So they were clearly very sacred spaces for the giants. And did Bigfoot hang out with them? Well, I've argued in my work that a lot of these giants were later cursed, became cursed creatures, and kind of morphed into what we later known as Bigfoot. So I think there is a Bigfoot connection with these sites as well.
Were some of these entities like protectors? You mentioned protectors because, like, I look at this inner Earth theory, how there's cavernous layers and tunnels going down so far. And from what I've heard is that in some of these military expeditions or in some of these ancient Egyptian expeditions, there are entities and creatures down in these tunnels and caves, and they don't want to go down there. These shamans are like, hey, like we're good.
Well, it's funny. One of the most famous UFO encounters was a guy named Phil Schneider, who was a worker. He was a civilian worker contracted with the government, and they were digging. I can't remember where they were digging, but they were digging, and they found these hostile, demonic extraterrestrial entities, and there was a whole shootout with them. And he went around the last years of his life on kind of a lecture circuit talking about this incident, showing pictures of the artifacts, showing where he himself had been wounded by these malevolent demonic aliens. So that seems to have been something that's happened frequently with people who are they're digging, and they'll find tunnels, hallways, entrances, and deep within them are these entities that sometimes aren't very nice.
Some of these entities are like, they have different color eyes, different color hair, different color skin, different appendages. Like for instance, there was reference to like one-eyed giants.
Well, in Greek mythology, you have the one-eyed giant with Polyphemus in the story of Odysseus.
And in that South American Mapinaguari, the giant sloth-like creature from the Amazon is sometimes described with a single eye and mouth on its stomach. Some of these giants are described having 6 toes, 6 fingers.
Polydactylism. Yeah, my friend Jim Vieira he talks about that a lot.
Do you think some of these had wings, like gargoyles?
Possibly. I mean, if we're looking, the giants, like I said, they've been around with us for a very long time. And if you look, going back to Atlantis, giants were experimenting on each other, on lower life forms. So maybe all of these, these weird creatures that we get, like the Mothman giant, for example, may have started out as an experiment from these primordial giants.
Yeah, I imagine so. There's the tales that these gargoyles were once living and they were turned to stone, right? We hear that even from some of these statues over all around the world. Some of these mummies that they were once living. Some people have also discovered old Buddhist monks that like are crazy in deep meditation, that they're like almost mummified, but
they're
I've living.
Before. Yep.
Do you think there's more entities that we're not seeing, that maybe that they're just like right beneath our nose and eyes?
Well, absolutely. And like you said, you mentioned earlier, we can't see everything on the wavelength, on a normal wavelength. So I think they're definitely all around us.
Right now, I kind of think that we are living in this hybridization program. There's entities all around us. It seems almost like our Hollywood celebrities are either clones, androids, or straight up hybrids. Like there was this there's this rapper that came out, like he wasn't even joking. Like he's like, to be honest, I'm not human. I'm a reptilian. And then someone recorded a few videos of him, and this dude's face, like straight up, was like in certain light exposures, you can see how his facial structure and his eyes and everything is very. He was telling the truth, right? And what we know is that, like, it sounds so hard to believe, but there's these demons that walk among us.
Yeah. I was watching on Netflix the other day the roast for Kevin Hart, and Cat Williams was on the roast, and he basically said that he was the only one in the group. So they had a bunch of Hollywood actors. They had The Rock. They had basically everybody was there. And Cat Williams was like, I'm the only one who's not a member of the Illuminati. I'm the only one who he said, and it was frightening what he said. He said, I'm the only one here who has a soul. And people thought he was joking. But I don't know if he was joking.
Right. And what I've heard is that in some of these darker extraterrestrial encounters with some of these dark grays that have these Nazi like things that they say they're abducted by these darker gray aliens because these aliens don't have souls. So they're over here trying to harvest us and try to be like us and walk into them like a skin suit.
Yep,
trying to
mm-hmm. Yep.
It's troubling to see how in our own government and in our own society that the war used to be very real. And back in the ancient days, it talks about this. It talks about Jesus casting out demons, walking through the streets. It talks about the spiritual warfare right in front of our face, and now it's laughed at and mocked.
Yeah. Because the powers that be deliberately moved us to the material, to the secular. So we don't take the demonic as seriously as we should. And that was deliberate. That was by design.
So we're supposed to use the force for good.
Yeah.
We're supposed to use the force for protection.
Yeah.
And and this George Lucas picture of Star Wars, I've heard there is this like ancient Jedi order too.
Yeah, some people have argued that. So something very similar to the Jedi. And I mean, look, and the Jedi seem to have been inspired by like the Templar Knights and the Shaolin monks, kind of a hybrid of those in Star Wars. So I'm a massive Star Wars fan.
Well, so these these Jedi are able to some of them are able to appear and reappear. Jesus was able to appear and reappear.
But that's kind of a cult technology that the Shaolin monks had, and that the Templar Knights, the esoteric knowledge that they claim to have, coming directly from Solomon and from Solomon's keys.
Right. And they're tapping into the dimensional wavelengths.
Yeah.
It's within our abilities. It's within the knowledge sphere of humanity to have this just abound. God gave it to us. God clearly has a plan for us.
Yeah.
I think that our true nature is like an angel in a sense. Like we were born with angelic
light, like the Gnostics said.
Like what?
Like the Gnostics said, we're beings of light.
You think that over the next like 10 years we're like I've been saying this probably with this whole humanoid like illuminist type of thing. You think what we're gonna start seeing abilities and things that unlock in humanity that maybe we've never had before?
I think so. We have the ancient knowledge, thankfully, is starting to come back. Thank goodness, for the recovery of going to kind of biblical scholarship, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Nag Hammadi text. So truth doesn't get suppressed, no matter how much the elites may want to suppress the truth. It always comes back, and people have more access to it than they did ever before. And I've been kind of bashing kind of our materialistic technological world here, but I think there's a very positive aspect to it, which is that anybody, I mentioned this before on other podcasts, anybody can have access to the Gnostic Gospels, to the Dead Sea Scrolls, to the esoteric knowledge of Cornelius Agrippa, on their phone. So at the touch of their phone. So people have access to this stuff much more easier than they did in the past, where you'd have to go to a library, to the special collection of a library to even find this information. So, I think that is going to, the technology that the elites used to separate us from the spiritual is going to be the same thing that leads us to our spiritual enlightenment.
technology is a transcendental tool. I always like to see how technology is a very metaphysical tool, also with the crystalline and the
Yeah.
like black screen type of technologies, and in a very strange sense. It's a scrying device, but it's also like a transcommunicator of EMFs and electromagnetic frequency wavelengths. Like we're able to like whatever thought we think around our phone, if we think it powerful enough, it can like send it
Mm.
out,
Yeah.
because of crystal technology. It's tapping us into like it's tapping us into a full ether. What's wild is that we're able to, like meditate, and we're able to tap into different energies. We talked earlier about how UFOs are biological. Well, like in ancient Egypt and in other ancient cultures, they believe metals and crystals had
Yep.
life force
Yep.
and life and ki, chi, prana. There's things, these things flowed all throughout us. Ether flowed throughout all throughout
Yep.
everything, and that it's all here interconnected. And with these phones, I know we can use them for good. We can use them for great. But we can also use them for superb things. We can use them as like tethering, like I I've Googled things without Googling things on my phone, just by meditating and like looking through ether and electricity
Hmm.
and energy. Like being able to tap into the electric current and
Yeah.
satellite frequencies of these things.
Yeah.
You can literally, I like, for instance, I know for a couple of my moments, like I know when I get a text message a couple seconds before, like I'll feel it, and I'll know, like in my head, like, oh, like there'll be a certain vibration that's going on, certain little, like 2 to 3 seconds before, and I'm like, oh, there's gonna be a text, and then it
Uh,
happens. So like if we can tap into those type of things.
yeah. I'm not quite there yet. I'll get there eventually.
No, I mean, but like, well, we're just, when we're in different states,
Yeah.
we have alpha, beta, delta, gamma waves, and when we learn how to like operate those, or when we're just like loosely operating them, we can sense these different energies, and that's kind of what these ancient technologies were very, very powerful for, with like Egypt and Malta and all these different things.
Yep. Yep.
Um, we were able to get into these states, and it's
Yeah.
known that Bigfoot will only like, and get in contact with you when you're in that right state of love, that harmony of love, that frequency, like like of intelligence, of protection, of peace, of like, hey, like I'm not here for violence, and like, these in that field of consciousness, that what is it, scale of consciousness, the Hawkins scale of consciousness, on the higher realms, like we have like this hierarchy, it the
Yeah.
higher energy, it's
Well,
better, it's more
that's
in
what Casey
tune.
was talking about with the Akashic records. You could tap into something. You could tap into a spiritual database of everything in the world, and you didn't need an internet or anything. Internet or even a physical library to do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's that too. Yeah, no, there's that too. We can tap into the Akashic. So when we look at the dimensions, right? You were talking about the Gnostics. There's different dimensions. There's different,
Yeah.
we're living in this third density. There's the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh,
Yep.
eighth.
Yep.
And so that Akashic realm is what, in the fourth or fifth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but there's, we can, for instance, on the physical realm of us using this technology, I haven't learned yet, but I want to. You were mentioning earlier that Aaronic priesthood, but the chest plate of Aaron and the 12 gemstones and the metaphysical magical properties that had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know my? Do you? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yep. Yep. Then there's a whole thing in Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, that talks about the breastplate of Aaron and kind of the mystical properties of that. But yeah, that thing was pretty wild. And then there's a bunch of speculation about that, because there's some people who would say, that itself was a cell phone to contact UFOs. So
Hey,
Yeah.
so would you be down to come on and we'll talk about like biblical artifacts next time and some more
I'd be up for that.
biblical
Absolutely.
mysticism, the Book of Enoch? Because like I feel like we barely even touched on the Book of Enoch.
Yeah, and I love the Book of Enoch. It's one of my favorite things. I love the Book of Enoch. Yeah.
Hey man, this has been a blast of a conversation, man. Time flew by, and I appreciate your time and everybody out there on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, all the different platforms y'all watch them. Please go check out Adam Stokes. Follow. Where can they find you?
Yeah. I'm on Facebook. I also have an Instagram account. That's how you found me, Adam the Giant Guy 2019. And then I have an Amazon author page. So if you type in Adam Stokes, if you type in any of my books, The Biblical Bigfoot, From Egypt to Ohio, you'll get to my author page, and all my books are on there.
Awesome. So is there anything that you're working on, or like you got projects?
Yeah. I'm working on a book looking at UFOs in the Bible, and I'm also working on transcribing the lectures I gave on Atlantis a few months earlier into book form as well. So those are my two main projects. So those will be my summer projects.
Awesome, man. Hey, this Bigfoot guy right here, Bigfoot dwarf 420. He put JPL red. Man, I wish the emoji came out. Damn. JPL red rocket countdown. Yeah, we're definitely not Jack Parsons, and we definitely don't want to be like the astronaut or NASA, and we don't want to be in like any of that.
Yeah.
What we're angelic. We're floating on them clouds of God that He mightily provided us with. Do you smoke?
No.
I'm a cannabis lover.
Yeah, I have a ton of friends, and I think cannabis has great properties. But yeah, I've never smoked. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is biblical. I know they found them in the altars.
I've used it. I've used cannabis for my back as oil. And it's been great, but I've never smoked it.
Do you subscribe to the theory that it's in the it's in the oil mixture passed down to Moses, that it's in
possibly. Yeah, I need to do more research on that, but it's very possible. I just know I suffer from a lot of back problems. I know when I put it on my back, it like freaking healed it for like a week or two. So, and then my back went back to being bad again. So yeah.
Yeah, there's this author from Europe there. He talks about how in that anointing oil that Moses was passed down, it has cassia, cannabis, myrrh, frankincense.
Well, the Rastafarians claim to have that oil, and it has cannabis in it as well. So
right.
Yeah.
And I think the Rastafarians got it from the Ethiopians, and the Ethiopians were the last to
got it directly from Moses. Yes. Solomon and Moses. Yep.
Dude.
Yeah.
We're solving it. Cannabis is biblical. Bigfoot is biblical.
Yes.
Hey man, this was an amazing conversation.
This was great, Joe.
Everybody out there, please have a good night. Drive safe. Be blessed. Be high. Have a good day at work wherever you are. I love y'all. Peace out. Bye-bye. See you next time on the 509 Divine Pines podcast. You can go ahead and wait for me or remove. I'm gonna go ahead and run one ad. Let me do that real quick. So, guys, are you guys feeling down? Are you guys feeling low in energy? Go over to Chemical Free Body, where you will wake up like you are 10 years old again. You will clean out your system, clean out the junk, clean out the toxins, clean out the parasite, clean out the funk. And if you want to, you can also get private coaching from Tim James. Tim James, the health hero. Yes, you go over to Chemical Free Body and get detox superfoods, bundles, nano silver products, water hero devices. Use coupon code 509 Divine Pines. And thank me later, guys, because we want to be parasite free. Peace. I love y'all.